Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Everybody, and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us as we got Lon Strickler in tonight for Strange Days, talking monsters, Mothman, Dogman, Sasquatch, aliens, you name it. We're on par tonight. Oh my God, does my hair look terrible? That's enough of that crap right off the bat. Let's just get serious here for a second. Dirty Filth is here with another great piece of art tonight. And we say hello to all of you. We got Race Fan in the gold medal position. Raymond L. with the silver. Sundance Kid taking home the bronze. Robert Lamoth, how you doing, Roy Boy? Penny Van, Sugar Britches. Good to see you all here. Markham, how you doing, buddy? Thank you for coming on in. Doubleday, good to see you. Doubleday Clements will be signing autographs after the show. Light up to the left of the studio if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. Let's go on with Michael Smith kicking off the super chat tonight. Thank you so much, Smitty. We really do appreciate your love and support and that beard on Spaced Out Radio. Monica, how are you? Deepocalypse, welcome to SOR chat. Thank you for joining us. Pat Toohey, Dutch Hank, it's been a while. Dino Bravo fan. Yeah, great Canadian wrestler right there. Even though I don't think he ever beat Iron Mike Sharp. Yeah. Canada's greatest athlete. Lisa C. Donna, how you doing? Kathy Evans, Rugged Source, Jurassic Joey, good to see you all. D. Cohen, nice to have you in early. Daryl Zerline, nice to see you. Ozzy Sue, thanks for coming on in. Bryant Brito, welcome to SOR chat. Thank you for joining us. Kurt M., thank you for coming on in. Hi, Laura Lobbs, Bigfoot Rob, Oob to Joe's Maine. You've got Sasquatch. Yeah, you do. In the forest right there. Forrest Louie, thank you for joining us. Hi, Pam Harris. Peppa H. Brown Dwarf, how you doing, man? Good to see you. Let's continue on with our roll call. There's Pixie Lara. Michael Morris, how you doing, my friend? And let's take a look here. Who else do we got? Palladium, my man. Nice to see you. And to Mothman, good to see you. And Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. Hello, lovely Kira. Your hair looks fantastic, by the way. And let's continue on. There's Bobo. And who else do we have here? Scrolling on down. Paramarv. Nice to see you back. And number 14 in your program, starting at left wing from Stockholm, Sweden, Lars Jansson. There he is. Good morning, Lars. And let's continue on. Dogface Simon in Australia. Good to see you. Jessica, thank you for coming on in. And let's see, man, there was a lot of chatter going on in the room. John Sabe Malan, bonjour. Good to see you. And Marge Maple, welcome. And who else do we have? Melissa Nicole. It's been a while. How are you, sweetheart? Good to see you. And let's continue on. Emmy Tong, thanks for coming on in. Skip to Malou. How are you? Mike Bothwell, Michael Smith again, and Penman. And who else do we have? Lioness of Gaia. Welcome back. Nancy Thames and Forrest Louie. Thank you so much for the super chat, my man. Very much appreciate it. It's a good way to support what we do. Always appreciate you, my friend. Too bad you weren't coming to Vegas. Welsh Hammer, good to see you. And who else do we got joining us tonight? Loco Boy, Welsh Hammer again. Slow Motion, good to see you. And let's see here. What's going on down? What's going on? Steve C., welcome. Let's start the radio side. That way we could get Bill WD40 into the chat room and lube us up for tonight's show. Linda Judd, how are you? Welcome to SOR Chat. Blue Cruz, good to see you. And Digger Dogma, man, can't wait to see you in Vegas again. Let's continue on. Bill Haynes, welcome to SOR Chat. Love V Love, how are you? Stargazer and Deb from SAC. TMI, good to see you all. And scrolling down, and who else do we have? Janet Martin, welcome to SOR Chat. So we got about 30 seconds before we're going to launch. And Mama Susan, nice to see you. Continuing on. Jack Wellenbrawl, welcome to SOR Chat. I don't know where Mark Muncie is. Let's see here. 19 seconds. Can we do it? There's Bill WD40. He's lubing us up as we speak. And one hot tamale. Where have you been hiding? Thank you for the super chat, my friend. Very much appreciate the love. Good to see you again. Hope to see you in Vegas. Horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on us. Where are we digitally? On TalkStream Live, Odyssey Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. It's a night of monsters here on Spaced Out Radio. Lon Strickler from phantomsandmonsters.com is here for Strange Days. Then in hour number 3, we're going to head to the swamp. Our resident swamp dweller will take us on another spooky journey. Then Tim Senor will be here with a jam-packed UFO report. Lots going on coming into tonight's show. Now, if you haven't heard him on here before, you're in for a real treat because our good friend Lon Strickler from phantomsandmonsters.com is back for another edition of Strange Days. Lon is a Fortean researcher, author, and publisher of his Phantoms and Monsters blog. He started it in 2005, literally gets hundreds, if not thousands of hits per month of people wanting to know or explain the monsters that they have encountered in their life. And Lon is also an accomplished author. You can get all of his books on Amazon or phantomsandmonsters.com. Lon, it is always a pleasure to have you on Spaced Out Radio, my friend. How you been doing?
Hey, Dave, how you? I'm fine.
Great answer. Great answer. We're done the interview now. Good job.
Yeah, well, no, I'm fine. Feeling better, getting stronger, so yeah, everything's good.
Well, you know what? We were trying to send you a bunch of love from the last time because we know that you have been battling some major health problems over the last little bit. But the fact that you were getting stronger, that you were getting better, that just makes us all feel a little bit cozier inside, my man. So thank you.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm it kind of hit me pretty hard for a while, but I'm off the pain meds, which, really were messing with me. And the swelling is going down, so I can get back on to doing a few things I was doing before I had the surgery. So it's all good.
Well, that's good because we get to talk some phantoms. We get to talk some monsters with you. And that's always a good time when we get to do that. And for you, my friend, I mean, you've been doing this a long time. Does anything really surprise you anymore when people bring up strange creatures that maybe you've never heard of?
Rarely. every once in a while I'll get a zinger come in and I'm looking at it and reading it and thinking, well, what's the deal on this? But no, I'm not really surprised anymore. You do this for so long, you hear all kinds of different things. It's, I'm not saying it's like a blur, it doesn't run together, but, there's not a whole lot that surprises me anymore.
One of the things I want to ask you, Lon, because you've been doing this a long, long time, and you have had hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands of stories over the last 20 plus years that you've been doing this. And realistically, they are all anecdotal stories. Very rarely will you get a photo of evidence or whatever that comes along with it. And yet here we are in 2023, and we see, all these people out there. It doesn't matter whether it's UFOs, cryptid world, the ghost hunting world, or the paranormal. Everybody seems to be whining and complaining about anecdotal stories that they're done with them. We got to stop with stories. I don't agree with that, because I'm a firm believer that if we don't have stories to investigate, we don't really have anything new to investigate. Where do you stand on this?
Oh, anecdotal evidence, in my opinion, is just as strong as maybe some sliver of evidence. You can't trust photographs all the time either. So, the biggest thing is where the report comes from, the person who's giving the report, and, actually talking to them and assess, what really happened. But, that's the key to it. There's a lot of times I'll get something that I will talk to the witness, and it just doesn't make total sense to me, but no, I think anecdotal evidence is absolutely necessary. If it wasn't, we wouldn't get anything. I mean, if we just stopped reporting on things because there was no picture attached or no recording of some type, it'd be pretty boring.
Why do you think this community has developed such a hatred for anecdotal evidence?
I don't know. I hear it all the time. Like, if there's no picture, it didn't happen. That's the kind of comments I get. Well, that's fine. You can think that. But there are a lot of people who've had experiences. I didn't get photographs of my experiences, so I understand. And you just can't rely on photographs. I mean, you've got to really make a concerted effort to talk to the witnesses and get the best information you can out of them, and then to go over it with them again, just to make sure they're not trying to pull the wool over your eyes. But no, I think a lot of that has to do with experience too. I mean, I've been taking reports since the late 70s. And for years before the internet, I'd be writing things down and keeping records and such. And but you just can't get photographed. But especially a lot of the younger people who are, they want instant gratification. They want to see that photograph. They want that money shot, and it just doesn't work that way.
For you, been doing this for so long, you, for instance, can tell when a person is BSing you or not. You've been doing this. You know the subtle hints, and I'm not going to ask you to relay those subtle hints because we don't want people getting around that. But how many stories do you get a month that you actually are like, this is garbage, this is a lie, this is made up, this is BS? How many are you tossing to the side?
I don't know. I guess it depends. I'd say maybe half of what I get, just doesn't meet my expectations or what I consider my expectations. I'd say half. I mean, it just depends. It sometimes I get sometimes I get a whole lot of good information, all at once. But there are other times where I get stuff, emails or phone calls, and I'm sitting there listening. It's like, but I try to do the best with what I got, and I want my readers to appreciate the gravity in which this individual or what they've gone through and what they're reporting. And I try to make it as factual and as close to what they've told me as I possibly can.
What makes a story believable to you, especially, Lon, if it's of a creature that you've never heard of before?
Well, a lot of it has to do with the actual witness embellishing on it. It's pretty cut and dry when that happens. I mean, they'll tell you one thing, then they try to make you believe it more by embellishing on it. That happens a lot, and I draw the line on that. That's just something we got to look out for. I know some people who would take a report and just literally just put it up there as is, without following up on it or talking to the witness. But I'm at the point now. I think I'm lucky enough to where I can be a little more discerning and try to keep up the report load to the best of my abilities. It's not easy all the time. I spend 6 to 8 hours a day working on the blog and listening to people's accounts and reading accounts, and it does take some time. But there's also a lot of work as far as how you write it up, so people can understand what actually happened.
Oh, for sure. What's the weirdest creature that someone has brought to you recently? Maybe when I say recently, maybe the last couple of years.
The weirdest creature. I don't know. There's so many weird things out there. I would say something that may be a cross between one thing and another. I'd say especially otherworldly sightings, where you get a description of a so-called alien being or extraterrestrial, where the characteristics are different than what the norm is as far as what you get. But I think that's probably the weirdest. And I actually wrote a book about it. Just so many different things people report to you, and that's that aspect of the paranormal. But some of the alien descriptions are pretty weird. Some of the characteristics, some of the activity with things, some of the things they do is pretty strange for the most part. But no, I'd say it would be those beings or those entities that kind of have different characteristics, from different other beings or well-known beings.
How many different alien species have you heard of?
I don't know. I couldn't keep count of them, really. There are hundreds. As far as putting a moniker or a name on it, well, that's pretty difficult. And I know there are people who have written books, and they like to give certain beings a name, even to the point where they try to explain where they come from. That's not what I do. I take what I get. I don't try to decide where this thing came from or what, for the most part, what their motive was, unless the experiencer actually explains that to me. But there's got to be hundreds, if not thousands, of them. But I'd say mostly you got some type of even when you're just talking about grays. I mean, you get so many variations that are reported to you. It's just never the same thing.
Oh, I hear you there, man. I hear you there. And some of these so-called people, and I don't want to bash too much because I am an experiencer myself of the phenomenon. But I mean, some of the explanations that a lot of these people come up with, man, I just want to say, like, how much have you been smoking? How much have you had to drink? I mean, it's hard sometimes to be in your position or my position or whoever and try and figure out the BS from the people who really need the help to get their story out.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest part of what I do, trying to separate the wheat from the chaff, basically. Because there are, people do report all kinds of different things, many things that, just don't seem right. But, there may be, they'll tell you about one thing they saw, and it may be related to something that you've dealt with before or other people have talked about. But, yeah, as far as writing a blog and putting these cases up and putting these encounters and incidents up, you got to watch it, especially nowadays, because you just talked, like we were talking about YouTube and how they really take offense to certain things you write about, putting definitions up when you post things and such like that. It's just, it's unfortunate, but for whatever reason, I just don't think they like to have people think on their own or have an imagination.
Nope, that would really, really be detrimental to whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? I mean, but the good part about it is, Lon, we get to talk monsters here almost each and every time. Well, actually, we do each and every time you are here. We know you love the Mothman. We know we're going to get into an update on that as we go on in the night. What's the hidden gem for Lon Strickler? What is it? Is it a puckwudgie? Is it gnomes? Is it little ghosts running around? What's that little one that you're just like, oh, this is awesome. I love these stories.
I just look forward to getting something that's different. You can report on Bigfoot and Dogman and winged humanoids and flying cryptids all the time. And for the most part, they're very similar in scope or in description. But every once in a while, you get that one story, that one account, and that one witness who's very dead serious about what they encountered or what they saw, and you get to work on that. That's I actually get excited with some of those unknown stories. And they're few and far between, but they're the one. That's what I look for. I mean, it could be anything, any type of entity, any type of being. If it's different, if it looks different, if it acts different, it's in a location that doesn't normally have anything that happens there. That's kind of the things I look for.
I love it. But you don't have any puckwudgies or anything stuck in your pocket,
Nah.
just to bring out, just to play show and tell?
No, not really. I'm not really into the face stuff and the little people. Occasionally I'll get something, but for the most part, I just don't really, I don't really cover a lot of that unless somebody's going to contact me and tell me about it. Then if they do, and it's a good report, and it's believable, then I get excited about writing about that. I do like new stuff. I mean, I do like being able to put out there something that just has not been seen before. And I've been lucky enough to get things like that occasionally. They'll go viral and something big. Just like about a year and a half ago, we had the river troll thing that came from a photograph in the lower Mississippi in Louisiana. And, that that went viral, but it was something different. There was a photograph, but then the witness actually talked in detail about what it did, what it appeared to them. And yeah, that's the kind of stuff I really look forward to.
We've got about 4 minutes to go before we got to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Lon Strickler from phantomsandmonsters.com is our guest tonight on Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Lon, you know, you look at everything that we've talked about so far in this show. My question to you is then, what subject of the paranormal supernatural are we not paying enough attention to in order to try and prove the existence of these creatures?
I don't think there really is one in particular. You know, of course, I'm talking, you know, me and my guys have been looking into the, you know, of course, this winged humanoid phenomena, but we're just not looking in Chicago. We're looking worldwide. And that's something that, you know, I really like concentrating on because it's an unusual phenomena. It's not really talked about a lot. Sure, you get the Mothman sightings, but it's still different enough to where it's very interesting. You know, you go to Google and put winged humanoids or Mothman, you know, I'm going to come up. Manuel, Tobias, the guys I've worked with on this, their names are going to come up. So we're kind of laying in an exclusive company there as to that phenomena. And that's why we get excited when we get something a little bit different. You know, I'm running a series now on on my shows on YouTube when I do the live shows, and we're starting to go from the genesis of this the Chicago sightings starting in 2017, and I'm getting in the weeds with it. I'm going to be telling more and more about some of the things that just are less well known about these beings, and you know, I think that's going to be an interesting series. And the reason why I'm doing this is eventually I'm going to have I'll have Tobias and Manuel come on the show, and we'll go over everything. But in June we're going to be doing we're going to be filming for Unsolved Mysteries about the Chicago Mothman. So we're looking forward to that. Hopefully we can get the word out there, you know, finally get it out there from the people that are actually investigating it.
That's exciting. That's exciting that you're going to be filming. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's something that's just cropped up, I don't know, the past 4 or 5 months, but we're in the process. You know, we're talking to producers. There's a budget already, and they got the go ahead. So we're planning on going out to Chicago and working on it starting sometime in June.
Good for you, man. Well deserved. Now that brings up for our public who may not know how it works. I mean, how do you do that? How do you, you know, set it up, you know, with these sightings and witnesses? How do you do that?
Well, normally what happens is, and you know, COVID really screwed a lot of this up. We had plans about actually self-funding a production, but that just didn't seem to work out. But we did get we were contacted, or Manuel was originally contacted by Unsolved Mysteries. They got, you know, for the next season. So of course they wanted to look into this phenomena. We've had offers before. We've had production companies come to us before, but normally it seems like it's going to be a high budget type of episode. But apparently they've got the funds to do it, and they're pretty gung ho about it. So yeah,
love it.
But you know, I get offers a lot for a lot of different types of TV shows and productions. But, you know, I kind of did everything early on, but I'm kind of a little more picky now than what I used to be.
Well, that's because you have the hair and beard combination to be picky. Lon Strickler from phantomsandmonsters.com, Strange Days, and Monster Talk continues with Lon right after this on Spaced Out Radio. Stay tuned. All right, we are clear. Perfect. Good start, Lon. Good, solid start.
You know, I had my first cup of Tim Hortons coffee in the last 45 years the other day.
Did
I
you?
didn't have to
Where
go
were
to, I
you?
didn't have to go to Canada to get it.
Were you in Ohio?
No, it was in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they've got some store. I think they got 3 or 4 stores in Pennsylvania. I know they got a bunch of them in New York, but I know Ohio's got a few. But no, I was up there about a week ago, and it wasn't a full size store. What they call I guess it wasn't even a kiosk. I know up in Canada they're everywhere. It's like McDonald's up there. But you know, when I lived up in Scarborough and Hamilton there for a bit back in the 70s, I loved the Tim Hortons coffee. And I could buy it and make it, but I just never thought it'd be the same. But no, I actually had it. It tasted the same, and it's something about that. So yeah, that was a treat for me.
I love Timmy's. I do. I don't care what anybody says. You know, next time you're in Harrisburg, do yourself a favor. Write this down, Lon. Write this down. You want a large ice cap.
Really?
Large ice cap. You want to know what heaven tastes like? That's a large ice cap from Tim Hortons.
Okay. I'll remember that.
You will thank me.
Okay. Yeah, I was kind of surprised because frankly, I got a couple of buddies who live up in Canada, and I told them, I had no idea that there were Tim Hortons in the U.S. I thought that was a strictly Canadian thing, but no, I just happened to be up there and I saw it, and I said, well, shoot, I'm going to stop in there. I haven't had a cup of Tim Hortons in over 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
And see if it tastes the same, and it's good.
Yep. You get that ice cap in you, my friend, and you will be like, where has this been my entire life? It's like making love for the first time, my friend.
Yeah, we when I was up there then, we kind of lived off Tim Hortons donuts and coffee for a while. So yeah.
I love it. I love it. I'm so excited for you right now. So excited for you. Let's see here. Right. We got about just over 90 seconds.
Okay.
Noble Patrick, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. Yeah. All right, Mike, I got your question. Thank you, Mike Bothwell, for that wonderful super chat. Very much appreciate the Canadian love, my friend, along with Derek, Deb, Molly, Louie, and Michael, a.k.a. Smitty, for the amazing super chats. Very much appreciate the love, guys. It's a great way to support what we do on a nightly basis, so thank you so much. I'm getting excited here because we're getting everything ready for the Vegas party, May 19th through 21st at the Golden Nugget in Las Vegas. And the swag bags are coming together, VIPs. They are coming together, and I cannot wait. We just got to get cable guy Matt to make some coaxial cable and autograph them all. Omar, how you doing? Welcome to SOR. How you doing, buddy? Welcome to the chat room. And yeah. I'm excited. What's the date today? 24th? All right, we got him, what, 20? I'm leaving on the 18th, so minus 6. 24 days, everyone. 24 days.
I'll have to try to get out there sometime when you do this.
Next year, my man. We'll do it next year again.
Okay.
Don't know
because
where doing it, but
it's been forever since I've been out there, so
well, you
I'd like to
deserve
go back out.
You deserve it. Here we go, Lon.
Okay.
Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. I want to remind you that if you've missed a portion of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Let us continue on with phantomsandmonsters.com. The president, the elite CEO of that monster website, Lon Strickler, is here with us for Strange Days. And Lon, thank you for always coming on this show. We appreciate it. You can find any of Lon's books on his website, phantomsandmonsters.com, or on Amazon. Appreciate you being here, Lon.
Always good to be with you, Dave.
All right. We need to take a deep look into this Mothman, because these Chicago Mothman stories just are not going away. They keep happening. And, since the last time you were on, have we had any new sightings?
No, actually, we haven't had a new. Well, let me put it this way. We've got reports, but we really haven't gotten enough information to put together a report. We've got one here, one there, but we got to talk to the witnesses a bit more. No, the last real good report we had was beginning of February. The one at the Little Village Plaza where this thing was in the parking lot. But I got one report, and Manuel and Tobias are each working on one in Wisconsin and one in Chicago. So so we're busy working on it. And as soon as we get enough information to make a report, or we'll get it up there. But sometimes it's like pulling teeth with folks. I mean, they don't always want to be forthcoming with it, but you kind of got to look at their side of it, but we're always confidential. Anonymity is always there. But then again, sometimes you get some reports that just don't really have much to it. And it's, we just don't lock it away somewhere and keep it as a reference. Or as far as posting the actual report, we won't do that. But we're up to 160 now. And like I said, they're all up on the map. You can go to the blog and get the links to the map and click on the little circles that indicate where the sighting was at. And it'll take you to the website to where it'll explain the actual sighting, the full report, and some follow-up on it. So, but no, it's been kind of slow the last couple of months.
Why do you think there are dips in these sightings?
That's something we haven't really figured out yet. We have sightings year-round, but for whatever reason, it seems to be that late winter going into spring is kind of a lull time. I don't know why that is, but I'm quite sure it'll pick up again. I mean, this time in 2017, we were getting inundated with the reports in that April of that year. So we'll see. I mean, it's just something we've never been able to figure out. But there's no real explanation to it as to why we get lulls or these breaks between reports.
Is this normal though? Is this a
Yeah.
normal pattern? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what we've been looking at, well, we had the three sightings in 2011. Then we didn't have another sighting that until maybe around 2017. After the 2017 sightings, we started getting some older sightings between that period. But since the spring of 2017 till current time, yeah, there have been dips. I mean, there have been times where we wouldn't have a sighting for a couple months. But then there have been times when we get a whole smattering of sightings at one time. So there's no real rhyme or reason to it. You can't predict it. But yeah, there are some periods of time where nobody reports it. Now, I'm not saying they're not out there. It's just got to be the right person who's going to come forward and say something to you. I'm quite sure these things are around.
The sightings of these creatures, as you've talked about many times on this show, they are always extremely similar. There's not a lot of variation between these Mothman sightings that are going on in Chicago. But for people who may be new to this subject, Lon, there is a difference between what people are seeing now and what was seen in the 1960s in Point Pleasant, West Virginia.
Yeah, that was an entirely different being that was seen out there, and it could have been more than one. I don't know. That was more an insectoid-like being. It seemed to be a bit body-wise was bigger. The wings were very moth-like, actual moth or butterfly-like wings. For the most part, what we've been dealing with in Chicago and in a few other places is this very emaciated body, very thin, anywhere from 5 to 6.5 foot on the average. It's dark in color. Many times it has the red eyes, which is very similar to what people saw out in Point Pleasant. But the wing structure is kind of changed. I mean, we got a few insectoid wing sightings early on in Chicago, and we had a few that people said looked like that of an owl. But I'd say the vast majority have been the bat-like or gargoyle-like membrane wings.
I mean, when you say that it looks emaciated and that it looks, that almost sounds like a Wendigo, to be honest with you.
Well, if you look at the Wendigo, how it's described, or a lot of people had different opinions of what a Wendigo looked like. But yeah, the body is usually very thin, just like the crawler humanoids, very thin, very sinewy looking body, thin arms, thin legs. That's a lot of what the body style is for these winged humanoids. Now, are they related to those other types of beings? I think very well probably could be, I guess. But no, compared to what people saw in Point Pleasant and other places, the body is much thinner. So that is the biggest difference.
Height-wise, weight-wise, red eyes, still the same?
Yeah, pretty well. The height is pretty similar, 5 to 6.5 foot. The wings are different because, like I said, most of what we get in Chicago are the membrane wings, or a bat-like shaped wing. Sometimes there have been different descriptions, but sometimes the head is somewhat thin, with a ray extending out the back of the head like that of maybe a pterosaur, but there's no long beak or anything on it. It's got a kind of a human-like face with some features to it, but the red eyes are the most distinguishable thing. Now, of course, we've had different color eyes too. We've had a few blue eyes, a few green eyes, but most, and sometimes people haven't seen the eyes at all. but the red eyes are pretty standard.
Do you buy into the aspect that, eyes color means something different about the creature? There's a lot of people when they say look at a Bigfoot, the eyes are a golden yellowish orange, but if it's like a Gugway or a Dogman, we get into those red eyes again, which seem to pronounce evil. I mean, what do you take on the eye color?
I don't think it really has makes a whole lot of difference. We've had Bigfoot with different color eyes. We've had upright canines and cryptid canines with different color eyes. I don't know if it's a supernatural aspect to these creatures. Many times when you see the Bigfoot or the canines, it's kind of a reflective eye. It's not a projecting light, unlike what we get with the winged humanoids or the Mothman, because these beings project light. Those eyes project actual light, and so that is one difference. So I believe that as far as cryptids and beings go, the winged humanoids or the Mothman definitely have various paranormal aspects to them as opposed to the other cryptids. But I think there's some paranormal, tidbits there as well. So, I don't know.
Do you think these creatures are from a different dimension, a different timeline, inner Earth? Are they aliens? Where has your evidence shown or leading to?
I think we can safely say they're not of this Earth plane. There does seem to be some instances where they just show up or they do actually disappear. There's a lot of high strangeness involved with that. So could they be alien beings? Sure. They could have some relationship to alien beings, but I think they do reside on another dimension. I think it's very linear or very close to our own dimension. I believe they are flesh and blood and they can move in and out. They're not apparitions or spirits or anything like that. But I think they do have the ability to move in and out.
Do you believe other cryptids have that exact same quality, or do you think it's just them?
Maybe not exactly, but I think they have that ability. I think Bigfoot definitely has that ability. I think the cryptid canines may very well have it as, also. So, I've said before, I think most cryptids, for the most part, are supernatural beings. And when I say supernatural, it's just not something that's indigenous to our world, that they can move in and out fairly easily. But I do think they're all a flesh and blood type of creature.
Can they understand English?
I don't know. I think when people talk about these beings communicating psychically, I think for whatever reason they can understand what you're thinking. Maybe they can understand what you're saying. It's not that they come out and start talking English. I've had many witnesses state in all these different cryptids that when they do seem to get a connection with them, that they're hearing it in English or they're sensing it in English. Same with a lot of the alien species where people have this, the telepathically can make out what they're saying to them.
Isn't that weird?
It is weird.
Do you think that, and this is where I get confused, Lon, when people have experiences, even with my own, how the hell is this thing talking to me in English? Or is that my imagination thinking that I'm getting some telepathic message?
I don't know. I don't think there's any, I don't know. I mean, it's a good question. It's thought provoking. Absolutely. When I do talk to people who say they experience that, I do have to dig in deeper, and to ask them what they actually hear, what they actually sense. Are they seeing things in their mind's eye? Are they? I don't know. Sometimes many people can actually see words as opposed to hearing them. It's almost like a closed caption coming up in their head. That's the way they describe it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I totally get that, man. I totally get that. And what is very interesting to me is, like, I know the one time we went out in the field here last September, where my buddy Mark got a message saying if he didn't leave his gun in the truck, which we bring a gun to protect us from the wild animals, that there was going to be bad stuff happening. And he listened to that voice and kept the rifle in the truck. I mean, there's so many stories of people who get these telepathic messages to get on out of here. We hear them along with Dogman type stories, you know, and I'm trying to figure out how the hell can a bipedal canine speak English?
Yeah, we hear that with a lot of the cryptid canine encounters where they'll come upon something like this being and not know what it is, but it seems like this thing can communicate and warn them somehow to either back off, or if they're armed, to lower the weapon and to just back away and move away. And we do hear that a lot. Butch talked about that a lot, where a lot of these witnesses that he talked to would mention that. So and it does happen with other cryptids as well. So it's not really. It's just an unexplained aspect to the whole phenomena.
I want to get a little conspiratorial with you, because I never kind of go down this angle with you. Do you believe, like many do, that a lot of these creatures, Lon, are being covered up by some sort of deep state, or they are some sort of machination of different creatures put together and trying to create super soldiers or something along those lines?
I think that governments and military are aware of them. As far as just like, well, Bigfoot, I think there's definitely something there. I experienced that with my sighting. I have talked to people who have experienced military and possible military and government involvement. And of course, if you talk about aliens, you hear the same thing all the time. I mean, of course, the government's involved somehow. It's a little harder to prove that. But of course, they're coming out now, and more they're talking about craft as opposed to alien beings. So you start talking about one, it's got to eventually lead you to the other. But I think as far as Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Sabi, or whatever you want to call them, I think the government is very aware of them, and they may be using them in some type of programs. I think that's entirely possible.
Do you believe that there is some remote base out there that has how can we put it? Some sort of strange hybrid creatures, maybe a human mixed with an owl. And that's why we see these 4 or 5 foot owls that people claim to see right before alien abduction. I mean, is that possible?
It's possible. I think it's absolutely possible. I think it's kind of hard for most people to comprehend, but I think it's very possible. When I had my Bigfoot encounter, I never would have dreamt that all these authorities would be showing up, let alone the feds. And that was back in 1981. So sure, I think much more today, that there is an effort to either study them or to use them for whatever reason. That's what governments do. I mean, is it the same as what we speculate with alien beings? Sure, it could be. But I think there is, I think there is something going on that, as far as that goes.
Really, eh?
Yeah.
I see. I think the government knows about them.
Oh, they know.
I'm just not sure that they are willing to do anything about them, because as we've talked before, you shut down forests when there are endangered species in that area. You shut those forests down for any length of time, from months to years, because you have to find out, okay, if it's an endangered species, what are they feeding on? Where are they living? Are they following prey out and migrating during the winter? What are they drinking? What type of everything that goes along with their environment, how does it affect them? So you have to shut down logging and mining and fishing and camping and hiking and everything that creates ecotourism in order to take a look at these creatures.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of money, Lon.
Oh, yeah. But I think they kind of do it without raising suspicion for the most part. There have been several times when I've gotten a report from somebody, which used to as well, where something would be seen and they'd go back, or an investigator would go back, and somebody dressed in military gear or garb would be there, or they would see them at some point. That happens. I mean, it happens a lot. So what's that all about? They're there for a reason. They're just not out there, So I wish I had more answers for that, but I suspect that there's a concerted effort to learn more and more about them, and I think if it gets to the point where they can use these beings to their advantage somehow, they're going to do it.
With 2 minutes to go before we go to break, at the top of the hour, Lon Strickler is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Lon, a lot of people will say, why don't trail cams work? Why don't drones seem to pick up anything? What is with technology and these creatures seeming to have some sort of aversion to them?
It does seem that may very well be the case. There are a lot of trail cam photos that are just very undiscernible. Call it that. They don't necessarily pick up a good form of the being. Is that something supernatural? Is there something that they can do to disrupt that? That's such something we don't know. But it's just like, again, when I'm talking about the winged beings in Chicago, there are times when I think they want certain people to see them and others not to see them. I think they have the ability to do that, and maybe Bigfoot and other cryptids can do the same thing.
With 1 minute to go, if they could do the same thing, do you think that, they are spotting this? Can they maybe smell, or their acute hearing hear the technology that we have hidden?
Possible. I believe that's absolutely possible. They may have the ability to kind of, sense something that's not supposed to be there is there, and I think they try to avoid it. And there's many times when I've seen footage where just a hand comes out or a backside or something, but you don't get a face. I mean, in these trail cams, it's just very rare. And many times when you do get a face, it's either distorted or it's just not a great photograph or an image.
I hear you there, Lon. I'm going to get you to hold on right there, because we are going to go to break here at the top of the hour. Lon Strickler from phantomsandmonsters.com is back with us again for Strange Days. We have him for another hour here on Spaced Out Radio. You can find Lon's books on his website, phantomsandmonsters.com, or on Amazon. Spaced Out Radio continues with hour 2 next. All right, we are clear. We are clear. There we go. Now my throat is clear. So, Dirty Filth, we're going to turn this over to you here, my man. You can let us know what you're building in the tree. It looks like a couple of Sasquatchy poos.
Yes, drawing Sasquatch, Dave. There he goes. Dave, if you're having difficulties, you should run to the store and grab some Fisherman's Friend. How's it going, Lon?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing?
Not bad. All the cats have abandoned me, so I can feel my legs again.
Yeah, mine's leaving me alone too, which is good because I can't stand it messing with me while I'm doing a show.
Usually it's not bad, but sometimes, I mean, the blob's fairly old and gravity's pulled her down a lot. It's fairly heavy now.
Yeah, Vinny will come over here and he'll get down on the floor and beside me and look at me and then start pawing at me for me to start scratching him. So, yeah, that can be a bit disconcerting when I'm doing the show.
So did I hear Dave Wright say that Sasquatch have yellow colored eyes? Is that reports that you get?
Yeah, I've had a variety of different colors, but it's mostly like a golden yellow color or maybe a red color for the most part.
That's a bummer. I've always drawn my Sasquatch with blue eyes because I figure the Sasquatch is a little more gentle than Skunk Ape. That's canon thing. So they had like the blue eyes, but I don't know if I can go back. I think I'll just have to leave them with blue eyes. I guess there's rowdy Sasquatches and junk, but I just figured seemed to be, from all accounts that I've ever read, a little more gentle than like skunk apes because I don't know, you live in a swamp and alligators to deal with, and I wonder if imagine that, eh? Imagine being on a boat and seeing a skunk ape scrapping this great big huge alligator or crocodile or something. Or alligator, rather. That'd be interesting. No one would believe that.
Yeah, that would be an interesting encounter. That would be an interesting watching two of them going at it. Could be a bit bloody, and gory, but
see, at that point, you just gotta wait. Whoever loses, you gotta swoop in there and like bonk them over the head and grab both of them at the same time.
I don't think I'm getting close to that. When I see that, I'm back away along distant enough that I can watch it, but I don't want to be involved with it.
But if you're already in the like swamps in Florida, you're probably with some like redneck guys that got it under control. So maybe, I don't know. I'd die if I went down there. I'd just melt to death. Okay, so this drawing I'm doing here, got the Sasquatches hanging out there. Usually they have an imprint. It's like one right or left footed stick they use, and they just put it down over and over because everyone's like, oh, we always see one print. Except for this guy, he's balding and his hair is falling out. And his buddy's like, you need to pick that hair up near the footprints. You trying to get us busted? There's going to be little tiny Sasquatch hairs near the footprints. Anyways, it's going to be comical once it's all done. I think it's funny.
Looking good, Dirty. Looking good.
Thanks, Dave.
That's the way I roll, man. Yes. I don't know if you saw Nancy H's super chat, but she was asking if she could send you her book and if you would autograph it for her.
Who, me?
No, sorry, Dirty Filth.
Oh, Dirty Filth, yeah.
Of course. I'm not sure if she's seen my email. It's filth@filthy.com. Super original.
You'll notice you'll notice, Dirty, I put your book up in a higher place so that way it's always advertised right there above El Ovni Volador.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Thanks for not using it for your bird cage, Dave. I appreciate it.
Well, I was about to, but I decided against it.
You gonna bring it to Vegas so I can draw on it?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. I want a picture of Lon Strickler's beard in it.
I'll have to make an addendum to the end. Oh boy, I said that wrong.
Yes. Yes.
Foyer.
Lon, you're an author. Is it foyer or foyer?
You talking about an entranceway to a house?
Yes.
I guess it's both. I've heard it both ways. I guess the French pronunciation would be the foyer, would be the proper way of saying it.
Mm-hmm.
So, Dave, are you moving to Quebec or?
No. Why would I? I'm an Oilers fan.
You're gonna have to change.
How about our Oilers in overtime last night, man?
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of Oilers fans on Facebook.
Yeah. I love my Oilers. Thank you, Omar, Nancy, Louis times 2, Mike, Michael, Molly, Deb, and Derek for the super chats. Here we go.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Oh my gosh, I don't even know what this is. You into there is your password. I probably got it wrong, but the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Here we go. Once again, we have Lon Strickler from phantomsandmonsters.com with us, as it is a great time for strange days right now. And of course, Lon's books can be found on his website, phantomsandmonsters.com, and Amazon as well. Lon, welcome back.
Good to be here, Dave.
All right, let's start off with some questions here from our audience. Let's go to Janet right off the bat. How often reported is something only visible in a photograph?
I don't think I've ever had, as far as a witness, because a witness would have to see it, I guess. I don't know. That's kind of an interesting question. I guess it does happen. People kind of take random photographs and something will show up that they didn't see. In that instance, yeah, I think it's, it does happen, but very, very rarely.
Can you recall any?
Yeah. There's one photograph that I remember seeing of it was at Salt Fork State Park, of a Bigfoot, apparently a Bigfoot kind of half in and half out. I mean, in other words, half of it was invisible and the rest of it was seen. But none of the people who were there, it was two people, and they were just taking random photographs of, the woods and such. But this thing showed up pretty close, but they didn't see it. that's the one that sticks in my mind more than any of them. Almost
Wow.
like it cloaked somehow. A lot of times people will take photographs of, something in a tree or something and something will show up, but they just don't realize what's up there. They didn't, they'll take the photograph, but never really discern that's what it was until they look at the photograph. Then there's something that they don't really know what it was, but yeah. Oh, that happens.
Before we get to any more questions of the audience, I think you brought up a very interesting topic of cloaking.
Mm-hmm.
Are these creatures much like deer or cougars or any any type of wild animal where they can cloak themselves due to nature and their coloring? Or do you think they have special type of cloaking abilities?
There are instances where natural animals can seem like they're cloaking or camouflaging to a degree that they just can't be seen unless they move or get into a certain light. I've had people tell me that they've seen literally a Bigfoot would almost seem like it manifests, but it was because of the light. They'd be in the woods and there'd be a small stream of light coming through the canopy, and this Bigfoot would get into the light, and I don't know if it's because of the hair or just the body itself, but it seems to absorb the light, and the being is not seen until it moves and it gets out of light, then it's seen. I have heard of those. As far as actual indigenous animals being able to do that, I think they probably can. I don't know if they do it consciously, but I think that they can do that.
Do you believe then that they have some sort of like military cloaking power that we see on many types of aircraft these days that can't be picked up, almost like their own stealth?
Oh, I think some cryptids can cloak themselves. We talk about this glimmer man phenomena where it seems like, from the Predator films where it's kind of that glassine look to it. There's an outline, but there's no real, it's just form and nothing distinguishable other than the form. And I've had a lot of people have seen that phenomena. Sometimes they do say the form will look like a humanoid or a human, but there have been others who have said, they swear it was a Bigfoot that would actually be cloaking itself because the form was so big, like that of a Bigfoot. That whole glimmer man phenomena is fascinating, and it's something that has really been coming into the paranormal in the past 15 years or so. That's why I always say that, a lot of these people who write screenplays or even do the production, maybe they had some type of encounter with something like that they put it in a film. Maybe they had some type of encounter like that. Who knows?
Wow. Okay, let's get to another question from our audience here. Let's go to Mike. All right. If the weird sighting out of the weird sightings, why has there only been one or two frogman sightings?
There have been many of them. It seems to be in one specific area. People talked about the Loveland frogmen out off the Little Miami River in Ohio. And I've had several people tell me they saw something like that. I mean, there have been several sightings of these supposed frogmen. I guess, if I went back and looked into my archives, I'm sure there are others. But it's something, just like reptile beings like skateboard lizard man and such like that. There haven't been a lot of them, but it is. I mean, it's just a few of them.
What about the goat man or creatures like that?
We get those. I mean, there have been certain areas that are well known for the supposed goat man. I don't live far. Down in Maryland, in Prince George's County, around the Laurel area outside of D.C. There's been a supposed flap of goat man sightings for years. You don't hear about it that often now. There are a lot of Bigfoot in that area too that have been reported. But there are certain areas, especially in the South, where these supposed goat men show up. I think it's a lot of urban legend for the most part. But the one down in the Maryland goat man phenomenon, if anybody's interested and they don't know about the Maryland goat man, they ought to look it up on Google, because there were a lot of sightings back in the 70s and 80s.
Very true. Very true. I don't know if I'd want to see one of them goat men. They just, I don't know, man. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but those things just seem right out of the pits of hell.
Yeah. There was a theory that these goat men were engineered cryptids, or something that was engineered or made by the government. There's an area down outside of Laurel called Patuxent Research Labs. The area's still there. I don't know if the labs are still open, but people had reported seeing these supposed goat men there. But it's been in other areas too, so maybe they escaped and got. But no, that's probably the most well known. There are other urban legends involved with the goat man, like at train trestles and places where people aren't really supposed to be at, and if you go there, the goat man will get you, that type of thing. But as far as something being seen consistently by different people in different locations, I think the Maryland goat man is probably the biggest one.
All right, let's go over to another question from Peter. Why do Mothman foretell disasters, or is that just in the movies?
Yeah, I don't buy into that whole Harbinger of doom theory. That all started back in Point Pleasant with back in 66 and 67. People were reporting the Mothman, and before the Silver Bridge collapse over the Ohio River back in about a week before Christmas, where 46 people died. After the fact, people said that they saw the Mothman above the bridge. Now, so some of them interpreted it as being a warning that, something was going to happen. There have been other instances where people report after the fact that they saw something. I guess the one, like I've talked before, that the Blackbird of Chernobyl phenomena was really the only one that I can have ever dug up that something was actually seen and reported before the Chernobyl accident. So, but there have been a lot of instances where people said they saw these winged beings at an area where there was a disaster.
Has that ever happened with other creatures outside the Mothman?
I can't think of it offhand. No, I can't think of it. I mean, people's talked about not necessarily Mothman, but angels and maybe other winged beings. But as far as seeing a Bigfoot or some other type of cryptid or weird phenomena, other than ghosts, maybe they would show up before something would happen. But I can't really think of that happen.
Right. So it owns the title. It owns the title of high strangeness like that. That
yeah,
is
well,
awesome.
see, that's, yeah, I mean, that, the whole Mothman phenomena is jam-packed with all kinds of strangeness to it. That's why, I'm kind of going deep into the weeds with this whole Chicago thing. that I've been, I'm going to be doing a series about that, because there's a lot of things in the reports that we have gotten from people that have been written up, but people seem to skim over and just don't remember as being part of the report. But there have been a lot of weird things involved with those sightings.
Like what? Weird how?
Well, where they disappear, where they, I guess the disappearing is probably the main one, but there are other things. Offhand, what am I trying to think of now? Sometimes you get, different sound. They make different sounds, or the way they approach people, where people kind of take it as a threat, and it's just not really that. But I'd say the disappearing and appearing part of it being such fleeting sightings and suddenly showing up like it wants to be seen. I think that's something much different than most other cryptid sightings.
Okay, let's move on here. Let's go to Mike again. What do you miss most about living in Hamilton, Ontario? And were you a Tiger Cats fan?
I lived right across the street from the stadium in Hamilton when I was living up there. There's a real nice park there. I used to like looking at the black squirrels. But no, I used to follow the Tiger Cats, to be honest with you, even when I was living here in the States. I liked Hamilton. Pretty laid back place. Cigarettes were too damn expensive back then. It wasn't easy to get beer all the time because you had to go to the provincial store to get beer. But I like Canada. I really do.
Okay, the big question is, do you prefer the Canadian Football League over the NFL?
No, I like the NFL. I'm an NFL guy. I like watching CFL football. It's something a little bit different, but I prefer the NFL.
I do too. Don't tell the CFL that. Shh. Let's keep that in mind. All right, let's continue on here. We got about 6 minutes here. We got time for some questions. This is more of a comment from Jules, but I think it would make for an interesting opinion from you, Lon. She says, perhaps they project their messages in all languages, they being the cryptids, when we were talking last half hour about whether or not they could speak or understand English. So she goes, perhaps they project their messages in all languages or directly to the language center of the recipient. So, of course, it seems to be in their language or languages.
That's very possible, I assume. Yeah, maybe humans can, with what these beings project to you psychically, maybe humans can discern it somehow. Maybe there's some part of us that can figure out what they're actually trying to communicate with us. I don't know. It's an interesting question. It's an interesting phenomena. It's something that I thought a lot about, even with alien, abductions and encounters, where they seem to, the actual experiencer can discern what they're trying to communicate with them. When I had my encounter, when I had my abduction, they didn't talk to me, but I was very cognizant of what they were telling me.
So strange.
Yeah, it is.
Strange. I just don't get it. I really, really don't get it. All right. Let's go to another question here. This one from Tony in the UK. Good morning, Tony. Lon, you were talking about why they haven't been caught on trail cams. I was listening to emails on YouTube about Sasquatch and Dogman cryptids seeing IR is it worth putting in a Faraday cage? In other words, the trail cam, should it be in a Faraday cage?
I don't know if that would help or not. I think if they saw a cage out there, they'd be a little apprehensive about getting close to it. Would something like that could block the magnetic energy that maybe those things put out or these things can detect? I guess that's possible. But then you'd have to you'd have to hide the cage too, somehow, I would believe.
A lot of people believe it's the light, because most trail cams have a red light when they're activated.
Yeah, that's very possible. Butch even said that. I remember Butch saying he believed a lot had to do with the light, or the flash, or the lens even opening and closing, to that degree of sensitivity. Yeah, I mean, who knows how sensitive they are to the electronics or the whole aspect of those trail cams.
I don't know. I really don't know.
There's just so many questions as far as that's concerned. I mean,
All right, let's continue on. We can sneak in one more question here. This one comes from Omar. What do you think about the jinn?
Well, I've never really investigated the jinn. Rosemary Ellen Guiley wrote the book about it. She was very into it. She talked about it. I mean, she believed that they're just not something that is in the Middle East. It's something that's probably a worldwide phenomenon. That they're like tricksters or some type of supernatural being that's almost like I guess you're talking about genies now or something like that. But she believed that they were supernatural beings that were worldwide, and they could be involved with almost any type of phenomena. I believe that may be true. You talk to some of these military people who were in Iraq and in Afghanistan, and they hear about the jinn from the locals, and of course they believe that that's part of their religion as well and their culture. Many of these soldiers believed in it, or after a while they started believing it because they start seeing all kinds of strange phenomena happening, and many times the locals would say it was a jinn or some type of other. Another thing they used to call it like ghoul. I mean, they would spell a GHOOL as opposed to with the U. Not necessarily a avenging spirit, but something to do with a jinn.
Now, the jinn, do we see a lot of activity from what we would label as jinn in North America, or is this still mainly a Middle Eastern, Indian type of cryptid?
There are some researchers that believe that it does exist here. I haven't really picked up on that. But some believe it is a worldwide phenomenon. I don't know. I mean, to me, those type of energies are pretty close together. They're almost the same thing. Distinguishing a jinn from a spirit from, what people will call a demon or something evil that's on another level that may or may not manifest or do certain things, but
true.
I just haven't really.
I'm gonna let you hold on right there because we are gonna break here at the bottom of the hour. We have Lon Strickler and Strange Days. for another 30 minutes here on Spaced Out Radio. We'll be right back. Beauty. Show's flying on by.
Yep. We should have a couple of Tim Hortons here right now.
Me too, my friend. Me too. I have some exciting news.
What's that?
I booked a tattoo appointment.
Did you?
I did for my just after my birthday, day after my birthday. Hi, Jenny girl, how are you? I am going in to get a tattoo of a Sasquatch on my leg.
I've never really been into the tattoo thing. My wife loved getting tattoos. My granddaughter loves getting tattoos.
Well, I haven't had a tattoo in about 20 years.
Really?
And there's one that I have to cover up. And so I'm getting that covered up with a nice Sasquatch walking through long grass and trees. Yeah. It's going to be awesome.
Cool.
Yeah. Yes, Deb, I'm going to get a tramp stamp on my bum. That's exactly it. I'm getting a tramp stamp of a Sasquatch on my bum. Yes. All right. If you guys have any more questions, I only have 2 questions for Lon. I could keep going, or if you guys have questions, throw them in the chat room. And very excited if Oakland moves to Las Vegas, because they're doing nothing in Oakland these days, but they need a new owner as well. Their payroll is less than some players are making in a season.
I don't know why they ever moved back. I mean, I don't, just like with the Raiders, I don't, the way they bounced around. And of course, the A's can't get a stadium built there. So I don't know. I remember the time back in the 70s where the A's were the team. Boy, they get crowds and stuff, but
man, I mean, I hate it when once proud franchises go to garbage like that. It really bugs me.
Yeah.
All because of bad ownership. I mean, it's the same thing in the NHL with the Phoenix Coyotes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Gary Bettman for some reason will not move that team. And now they're playing in a 4,000 seat college stadium that doesn't even have dressing rooms.
Oh my Lord.
Oh yeah. And they're trying to get another building built there.
You think the league would step in and do something?
Well, that's Gary Bettman. See, that was Gary Bettman's first major move, was moving the Winnipeg Jets originally out of Winnipeg
Mm-hmm.
to Phoenix. And then he followed that up by moving Quebec to Colorado.
Well, Colorado panned out, but the move to the desert really didn't.
No, but why he keeps wasting league money and revenue on that team, I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. Mike Bothwell, I can't find your question, buddy. Can you repost it?
I just find it a real shame when they started moving all these teams out of Canada, all these NHL teams. I just found that to be a real shame.
Yeah, we need about 2 more.
Yeah.
I think we can only handle about 2 more. One in Hamilton and one in Quebec City.
You think Hamilton could support one being so close to Toronto?
I think they could.
In Buffalo?
I think they could.
Really?
Oh yeah. Totally think they could. I mean, you have Ottawa there too. I don't see Hamilton as much as I do Quebec City.
Yeah.
1 second, Lon. We got 10 seconds. Thank you to Omar, Nancy, Louis ×2, Mike, Michael, Molly, Deb, and Derek for the amazing super chats. Here we go, everyone. We pass the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Lon Strickler is back for the last half hour of Strange Days as we get right into the monsters among us with the man from phantomsandmonsters.com. You can find all his books on that same website. Lon, welcome back.
Great to be here.
All right, we got a few audience questions here for you.
Okay.
And let's take a little peeky-poo here on where we're going. Let's go to Stargazer. Do you consider the Hopkinsville goblins cryptids or aliens?
Probably aliens. Since the it was part of the it was investigated originally by Project Blue Book. I can understand where some people would believe it would be a cryptid because it was so different. But the description was pretty similar to some other supposed otherworldly beings that people have seen. So, I don't know. That's a hard question to answer. But no, I think it probably relates more to alien beings.
How come we don't hear much from Hopkinsville anymore?
Oh, you do. I don't know. Yeah, you do. I mean, when you're talking alien encounters, and that's always one that's in the top 5 for the most part.
Well, no, I understand that, but do we see a lot of new reports coming out of there?
No, you don't.
All right, let's continue.
Yeah, I can't think of any.
Let's go to John here. Lon, what is the scariest cryptid in your opinion?
Upright canines. And I say that because I don't want to encounter one of those things. I really don't. They're just I can't imagine encountering one of these things. 9 to 10 foot tall bipedal dog that looks like a werewolf. That's not for me.
All right, let's continue on. I think, you know what, before we continue on, I would have to say that the Dogman would be my scariest as well. I haven't seen one. I know they are in my area. I've learned the vicinity they are in, and I'll stick to the west instead of going east.
Yeah, the sightings we get around here, they're pretty weird. They come in all kinds of descriptions. A lot of times, the quadrupeds are described as looking like oversized hyenas, and hyenas aren't small. but it's like a hyena with a wolf head and sloping back. But the uprights are huge. I mean, everybody that comments or has an encounter with these things, it's so impressive the way they describe them. You know, just like people who are familiar with the Underworld series and, you know, film series and those werewolves, that's the way people describe these things. I don't want to encounter one of those.
No. Let's not do that and say we did.
Yeah.
How about that? All right, let's continue on here and let us go to Emmy, who is asking, what about the Giants of Kandahar?
Yeah,
You've heard
Kandahar.
rumors.
You know, that is one of the weirdest stories that ever come out of Afghanistan. You know, I don't know what to think about that thing. I've written about it. I've written the reports down. The supposed sightings of this thing when they was killed, and they said that they strapped it onto a skid, put it on a C-140 and sent it over somewhere. I don't know. But this thing supposedly had killed one Marine or one serviceman. Yeah, that giant of Kandahar, that's a weird story. Red-haired giant.
You know, I had heard it was Army Rangers, and I actually
Maybe it was Rangers.
I talked to a friend of mine who was an Army Ranger, and I asked him if he had ever heard of this story as well, or if he had heard of it. And he said that they had never heard about it, and he was in Kandahar at that time, you know, and that is kind of the weird part about it. So don't really know. Know.
I don't know either. I mean, there's I don't know. You know, you hear a lot of stories that came out of Afghanistan in particular. Yeah, that giant of Kandahar, that's a weird story. But I don't know either. I don't know how true it is.
All right, let's continue on. Let's go to another one. Let's go to Tony. What do you guys think is the main reason why the government won't acknowledge the existence of Sasquatch and Dogman?
Well, like I said before, I think they know about it, but I don't think they just don't want to make it public as to how deep it is or how much knowledge they do have. I think you know, if it's something that the military can use to some, you know, at some point, I think they'll probably stay away from, but I think they're interested in it. You know, especially Sasquatch. I think there has been an interest in Sasquatch for decades. As far as the dog man, I don't really know. I haven't seen any evidence or heard of any evidence where these are on the government or military radar. But I have seen enough as far as Bigfoot in my personal runarounds with investigating and personal and anecdotal that I think the government does have a keen interest in Bigfoot.
Do you think that they would try to make them into super soldiers or something along those lines?
If they could use it to their advantage, sure. You just know how the government is. I mean, you know, if it's something that they can engineer into a weapon of some type, I'm quite sure they'd probably use it. That's just it. You don't know if they can use it to where it would be reliable and safe for other troops and such like that.
Yeah, that always interests me because, like, even a comment here from Anastasia, like, where did Dogman come from? Like, where's it been? I mean, it's only been, the last 30, 40 years that it's really taken off. I mean, did it
Yeah.
just show up out of nowhere?
Yeah, people are seeing it more and more, and maybe there is some type of connection there. Of course, there's been history of dog men for centuries, in lore, but as far as what people are seeing, particularly around in the North America, yeah, there's where's the nexus of this thing? That's the big question. I mean, where did it start out at? Was it an experiment that went wrong, or something that was engineered genetically that was somehow let loose? I just don't have the answer for that.
I have no idea.
Nope.
No idea. All right, let's continue on here. Let's go to Mike. When people were seeing Mothman again and worried something was going to happen, what did you tell them, Lon?
I told them not to worry about it. It's funny, when all this stuff started in Chicago back in 2017, and I was calling it the Chicago Phantom. But of course, when the internet and the media got a hold of it, they want to liken it to the Point Pleasant Mothman, so it was called the Chicago Mothman. So, of course, people that know the story about the Mothman, the first thing they think is, well, something's going to happen in Chicago. So I literally had people calling me at all hours of the day and night who didn't have an encounter, but were scared that this thing is flying around Chicago, and it must be a harbinger of something terrible that's going to happen. And I would tell them, I'd have to explain to them, that I didn't believe in that it was kind of something that came out of the mind of, for the most part, came out of the mind of John Keel, and people trying to explain why a bridge collapsed and 46 people in a small town died, as, using it as an excuse or an explanation. It just became legendary. So of course, when people hear that, they believe that the Mothman is a harbinger.
I can see that. I can totally see that. All right, let's continue on here. Let's go to Paramarv. Have you been getting reports of Bigfoot or Dogman in Kentucky, Tennessee area called Land Between the Lakes?
Yeah, we've had for decades that area land between the lakes, which is what's the name of that lake? It's like not an island, but there's land between these two lakes where they swear they have they've seen these upright canines, and there have been a few stories here and there of these things showing up. There's one story about it actually killing people. I don't believe all that. I just haven't really seen the evidence for that. Been a lot of stories, been a lot of crazy stories. But there's also been instances where witnesses who would be in that area would contact us or contact me about seeing footprints and evidence of these dogmen or upright canines around there. So, I've also had Bigfoot reports around there as well. So, that land between the lakes is synonymous for cryptid activity.
Do you think certain areas are just more adjusted to it?
Yeah, I think some certain areas are akin to those beings being around. Why in particular, I don't really know. It's just like here in Pennsylvania, we got a lot of areas where, we get a lot of sightings. And why is that? Well, is it just the layout of the land? Is there something really supernatural about it? Is it a portal opening of some type? Or is it a place where they can come in and out of another reality or another dimension? I don't know. But that land between the lakes has definitely had a lot of sightings and a lot of reports over the years.
All right, let's continue on here. Let's go to Anastasia. Any new night crawler sightings?
Not really. I don't get a lot of new reports. That's kind of dried up a bit. Now there have been some, and I had posted. If you go to the blog, if you go to Fams of Monsters, I had posted some trail cam images of these things, even some video. People are picking them up on, well, supposedly picking them up on trail cams. But as far as actual encounters where people, would have an encounter with, it's not as much as I had for I don't know. Been a while. I mean, it for a while, for a couple years there, it seemed like every time you turned around. But that's another thing with that phenomenon, where I had kind of equated them to being memes, internet memes, or maybe some type of thought form. With the whole Slender Man thing and all that, I was kind of believing that there might be a connection to that, where people were actually mind manifesting some of these beings unconsciously. But no, frankly, we have not had the sighting numbers like we had even 2 years ago.
Where do you think a lot of these creatures like this have gone? Like we were talking, like Mothman can disappear for months at a time. We haven't heard any about night crawler stories in a while. Rarely have the frogmen appeared. Where's the goatman? And where's the hat man? And where are they all hiding? I mean, are they all sitting at a poker game somewhere in a dark, dingy casino in Reno or something?
That's the big question. I mean, where do they go? Because if you would assume, if they were on the earth plane or they were indigenous, there'd be more sightings of it. But that just hasn't been the case. I believe they are able to move between these dimensions somehow, and maybe they all come from one place. Who knows?
I don't know. I would like to know.
I would too.
Kind of give some credence to that inner Earth theory.
Yeah, well, that's something else. I mean, is there really an inner Earth? Who knows?
I don't know. All right, let's go to another question here. Let's go to Overbuilt. Lon, any cat people humanoid stories you could talk about?
Just a few, and most of the cat people stories have come out of Florida for whatever reason. I know of two in particular. One was at Naples Beach, where one showed up at. There were a couple witnesses of it. Where it came from, nobody knew, but it was an upright feline type being. Then there was another one in, what county was it? I think it was in Hillsborough County, outside of Hillsborough County, in the area around where a lot of the skunk ape sightings have been, that someone had accidentally or somehow run into one of these things. I had to dig it up to get the full thing out of, the full story. But I do remember those two in particular coming out of Florida.
All right, let's go to Joe here. Are there any snake men?
Not that I know of.
Aren't snakes scary enough?
Yeah, I'm not a snake person.
Me either. Nope.
I've been bit by two of them. That's why I don't like snakes. I got bit by copperhead when I was younger. When I was a kid digging potatoes, and then I got bit by a copperhead when I was fishing one time. So yeah, snakes aren't friendly with me.
No.
Though I used to go timber rattler hunting.
No.
That's another story. So yeah.
Let's go to a new listener in our chat room, Monica, who is asking about going back to the land between the lakes. What do you think of the family that was slaughtered there? Do you think it was Dogman?
I don't think that story is true. I think that story has been embellished so much. I don't doubt somebody saw something or had an encounter, but every time I have gone back and tried to talk to somebody who supposedly had knowledge of that story, it just doesn't really shake out. I just don't believe it ever happened.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, I don't think that's a true story.
All right, let's continue on here. Let's go to Javier, as we got about 4 minutes to go before we got to call it the night we here with you, Lon. So we are running out of time. Javier from Cryptid 559 out in California is asking, any new encounters on the Jersey Devil outside of NHL playoffs?
Nothing new. I've had 2 police officer encounters with the supposed Jersey Devil in the Pine Barrens area within the past decade. 2 different police officers had encounters. Now, there was another one that came out of someone who said they had one meandered into their campsite. I don't know how long ago that was, but that was in the Pine Barrens as well. People are still having sightings. Now, is it their imagination going wild? Who knows? But when you start getting police officers who are coming forward and telling you this, they're seeing something, I believe. Now, the whole Jersey Devil thing is the whole legend behind that. It may not be that. It may be something else. It could very well be a winged cryptid of some type. But yeah, when they see something that they can't explain in that area in South Jersey, it's it had to be the Jersey Devil. So,
my goodness. All right. Paramarv wants to know, Lon, any correlation between cryptid sightings and underground military bases?
Well, if it is, I don't know of any. People have always talked about the Dulce base and experiments and all that stuff out in New Mexico. And if there's any real connection there, I don't know. I've had stories in the past of people being in caves and seeing reptilians marching through caves and marching through chambers in caves and that type of thing. But I don't know. Something like that is really hard to prove. But there have been a lot of stories over the years.
Mm-hmm. Final question. Let's go to Shaq. Any reports on manticores, sphinx looking like cryptids?
Not that I've received. No. Though I would like to get one. The whole sphinx thing is kind of cool to me.
1 minute to go, Lon. I don't know if we can finish this off strong. It's been a pretty strong show so far tonight. Do us a favor. Tell everybody where they can find your books, your YouTube channel, your website.
Well, the website is famsandmonsters.com. That's the blog site. The team website is cryptidhunters.org. My YouTube channel, you just go to Fams and Monsters Radio, search it, and it'll come up. And the books can all be found on Amazon or Beyond the Fray Publishing.
That's pretty cool. What do you, any new books coming out soon?
I've got one that because of the surgeries and everything, I've been delaying on. I'm under contract to get it written, so eventually I will. It's going to be about the cryptid canine phenomenon.
Beautiful. Lon, it is always a pleasure to have you here on Spaced Out Radio. And you know what? We will talk to you at the end of May. Hard to believe we're almost through April, but we appreciate everything you do for us, my friend.
Okay, well, you take care, and we'll be talking soon, Dave.
Absolutely. Lon Strickler, phantomsandmonsters.com. Check it on out. Coming up next, we're going to head to the swamp Then Tim Senor is back for a very, very busy UFO report tonight. Hour number 3 of Spaced Out Radio is next. Great job, Lon. Great job. Apparently, Joe thinks my Bigfoot head here looks like you.
Yeah, that's what I read. I don't see the resemblance, to be honest with you. Oh, God.
We love you, buddy. You take care, okay?
Okay, I'll talk to you soon, Dave.
Have a good night.
Mm-hmm. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Lon Strickler, everybody. I will be right back. You guys stay tuned. right. Jiro, how you doing? Good to see you. Chris Teen, nice to have you back. Glad you're enjoying yourself, Omar. Thank you tonight to Michael, Louie ×2, Molly, Deb, Derek, Mike, Nancy, Omar, and CS for the amazing super chats. Very much appreciate the love and support. Very much do. Nina Williams, how are you? Good to see you. Yeah, it's always good when Lon is here. Hi, Logan L. How you doing, buddy? Good to have you coming on in. Don't forget you can do some shopping for any of our gear, like our Peak Woo t-shirts, by going to spacedoutradio.com. We appreciate it. It's good support of this show. That's for sure. Here we go with hour number 3, everyone.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you so much for joining us. We very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. You into there. You into there is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. It is time once again for us to head to the swamp. Our resident swamp dweller takes us on another creepy journey.
Hi, Spaced Out Radio listeners. This is Swamp Dweller. It's time for your nightly dose of spookiness on the show. If you have an interesting encounter or a spooky story that you would like to share, be sure to submit them in at swampdweller.net. You can also find our YouTube channel at youtube.com/swampdwellerreads. Now, let's chill out, relax, and together, let's enter the swamp. I've always been an avid hunter. So when my buddies invited me on a hunting trip in Canada's Yukon Territory, I couldn't resist. We were all excited to bag ourselves some big game. And we spent weeks preparing for this trip. Finally, we set out on a clear day, the sun shining bright overhead. The air was crisp and cold, and we could see our breath as we went deeper into the wilderness. As we walked, we noticed tracks in the snow leading in a specific direction. We followed them, hoping that they would lead us to some sort of prey. After several hours, we came upon a clearing in the woods, and that's when we saw it. At first I thought it was just a massive grizzly bear. Its fur black as the night, but as we drew closer, we realized it was much, much worse. The fur wasn't black at all. It was actually covered in blood. The creature stood 10 feet tall, towering over us with massive frame. Its fur was matted and unkempt, and all over it was just covered with this dry, black-looking substance that I can only describe as blood. The creature easily stood over 10 feet tall. Its eyes glowed with an otherworldly intensity. This was the first time I'd ever seen something like this. We raised our rifles, aiming for the beast's heart, but as we fired, the creature let out a roar, its claws tearing into the snow. It was as if our bullets did not affect it. We ran, our hearts pounding with fear. We knew we were in way over our heads, and this creature was way beyond our control. But as we turned to flee, we noticed that it was following us. its heavy footsteps shaking the ground beneath us. We spent the next few hours running through the wilderness, trying to outrun this creature. We had thoughts of climbing trees, but this thing was large and could easily knock one over if it wanted to, and it could probably climb as well. It was always one step ahead of us, taunting us with its unearthly roar. We were out of food and supplies, and we were growing weaker with each hour. Finally, we stumbled upon an abandoned cabin and took refuge inside. We built a little fire, huddled together, and kept warm as much as we could. But we knew the creature was still out there waiting for us, and we knew it would be trying to break in at any moment. We raised our rifles, ready to defend ourselves as this thing was pounding on the door. But it was almost like right before it was going to break through, it stopped. We thought it might be gone. But then suddenly the door burst open and the creature lunged at us. We raised our rifles, but it was definitely too late. The beast had nearly had us in its grasp. I heard a sudden explosion and I noticed that my friend's gun had gone off and the beast had suddenly been injured in the face. It started clawing at its face. I don't know if the bullet was stuck or what happened, but it gave us just enough time to scramble outside of the cabin and run away. As we began to run, we heard this thing roaring in pain. It looked like it might have been blinded somewhat as it came out of the building, stumbling and running and trying to find us. We took this opportunity to run as fast as we could in the opposite direction that it was looking, and we just never stopped. Eventually, we came across an old logging road and followed it long enough to find a ranger station, and from there, we got help and told them our story of being mauled by a freakishly large brown bear. From time to time, I still find myself waking up screaming in the night with nightmares about that creature. I don't think it was any normal bear. I mean, this thing was twice the size of a regular grizzly bear. Whatever was matted on it, this thing just almost felt like a zombie that was just made to kill and eat. And I know that's basically what these things are, they're killing machines. But this just felt different. I don't truly know the horrors that I witnessed on that hunting trip. But I'll tell you one thing. I have a deep respect for the nature that I never had before.
And that's why we love the Swamp Dweller around here, as Swamp Dweller takes us on another creepy journey, once again, as he does every third hour, Monday through Friday night here on Spaced Out Radio. And if you want more stories like that, all you got to do is go to youtube.com/Swamp Dweller Reads, and you can get more of those stories, thousands of them, just like that. From the swamp to the stars, it is that time again where we bring in the Cryptid Report. Our good friend Tim Senor is here with us once again.
Nobody's gonna know. They're gonna know.
There's the man, the myth, and the legend all rolled into one. Tim Senor, looking like he's just back from a nice golf game, shooting a nice 5 under 67. What's happening, Tim?
Hey, Dave, it's good to see you, buddy. Thanks for the invitation. It's great to be back for the Cryptid Report. I guess I'm doing cryptids tonight. So...
I apologize. I was going to give you the UFO report. I read my script. I apologize.
I love it. It's Tuesday.
A little bit of breaking news here. Good friend of this show, Matt Ford, from the Good Trouble Show on YouTube. And we highly suggest that our listeners go and subscribe to that. He's really getting into the UFO stuff. Well, he just spent the last number of days in Washington, D.C. And he has lined up an exclusive interview with Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, who, of course, is on the committee really pushing towards learning about UFOs and UAP. And he is going to get an exclusive interview that will run next Monday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific on his YouTube channel. So that's 1 p.m. Eastern. And I highly suggest, if you have interest in UFOs, that Gillibrand doesn't give a lot of podcasters, YouTubers, a lot of time, especially on this subject. And this will be the first time that she actually talks to somebody in our community on the record. And I'm very much looking forward to that, Tim. Very much. How about you?
Yes, indeed. It's nice to be able to get access to somebody that is representing this topic so full-heartedly. And Matt Ford is a great representative to ask those questions. I am excited to see some of his inside questions, and perhaps he's going to have some conversation with her, off air, where he can ask some of the more important questions that he has, maybe not just on UAP, but just in general. So I think that that's great that she's making time for such a great podcast.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And you know what? Look, whether she comes out swinging or whether she comes out answering the basic questions that we all know, and we know this community, Tim, is going to be, they're either going to love it or they're going to be in total disagreement with everything he asked and every the way she answered those questions. But I think this is, and I'm not saying this because Matt is a friend of this show, but that's a hard interview to get. And to take the time and to actually push and paddle his way through to get that interview and bring it to us, no matter how much chocolate and vanilla we're going to get or whether it's just going to be vanilla. Either way, it's a win for our community in ufology. It really is that she is opened up to this topic and will maybe open up to lengthier interviews and more open discussion regarding this. And you know what? I think, and I know my politics up here in Canada are much different than the politics in the United States. But I will say this. I think politicians need to be held a little bit accountable. They're voted in by the public, and if the public has questions that are relevant to the topic, they need to answer them. And I hope he asks, knowing Matt, I know he'll ask some very pointed questions. They'll be fair questions. And we're not going to get many answers. We're not going to get the disclosure answer or anything like that. This, I have a feeling, will be a very politically correct interview. But nonetheless, it's a great door opening to get Gillibrand speaking to this community. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, and I think it's important that we don't press on some of the questions that we know she can't answer. Like, she won't be able to answer about what took place behind closed doors. Those confidential meetings. Obviously, she won't be able to speak on that. She may be able to talk about some of the whistleblowers or some of the things that are going to become public. Excuse me. She may be able to discuss her opinion, perhaps, or her position, at least on witnesses and how they should have a place in this conversation moving forward. Perhaps he can represent some of the public issues that are represented on UFO Twitter, even to her, and get some of those poignant questions answered. It'd be great.
Well, the good news for our Spaced Out Radio audience is in our number 3 of Monday night show. So Matt Ford's episode will air Monday morning, okay, at 10 a.m. Pacific, if you want to listen to it. That night, in hour number 3 for the UFO report, Matt Ford will join us for an interview for that final hour of the show, where you and I will get a chance to talk to him, and it'll be his first interview right after that. I think it's going to be great. We're going to get to learn the inside of everything. How difficult was it to line up this interview? How difficult was it to get questions answered? Okay, we're going to ask him a bunch of questions regarding this, but this is an important time for our good friend Matt Ford and the UFO community. I hope the UFO community realizes it, whether you are in agreements or in agreement with Gillibrand and what they are doing on the political side, or whether you're not, or whether you're in agreement with everything that's going on in ufology or not. The main thing is we got to get the door open somehow, And this door has been opened. And I like that about it.
I do too. And it's also an opportunity potentially to have a conversation with her to educate her on initiatives and public programs that have been created on this topic that could help. So, it's a great conversation that needs to be had. And the public two-way, I agree with you, is very important when it comes to this topic and the people that are moving on it.
I would agree. We're going to talk about at length here another subject, okay, that is going to be a little bit highly controversial, okay, and that topic is Fox News parting ways with Tucker Carlson. Now, I have been on record as saying that, as a former hockey tough guy, that Tucker Carlson has one of those faces that I just want to punch. He does. That smug, cocky look. He just deserves it. Okay. But politics aside, or whatever side of the ledger you sit on, whether you liked him or not, and I will admit, I'm not a fan of his. Okay. I'm not. However, one thing that I did admire about him was the fact that he never dropped the UFO story. He kept the UFO story in the mainstream. Granted, he asked a lot of softball questions because he's not a journalist. He's a TV entertainer. He even admits that himself. Okay, so it's not me saying, you're not a journalist for working on Fox. It's not that at all. Okay, but I will say this. A lot of people, millions of Americans and people around the world, found him highly entertaining and asking a lot of prudent questions on difficult topics. But when it comes to us here in the UFO field, the one thing I liked about Tucker Carlson is he kept the conversation open, Tim. We didn't have a lot of journalists who would do that, or a lot of television faces that would do that. Sure, there would be the odd New York Times article. There would be the odd article that would come out from Politico and go absolutely haywire. Okay, CNN never covered UFOs the way Fox News and Tucker Carlson did. The rest of Fox News never covered UFOs the way Tucker Carlson did. Okay, and I think for our community, whether you love the guy or can't stand the guy, okay, and he is an arrogant, pompous guy. At least that's what he portrays on the air. I am very, very sad that, and probably a little concerned that Fox News is now going to be dropping the UFO story. What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah. Tucker is a strong reporter and definitely a strong personality for CNN. And he did cover a lot of topics with his strong opinion. And I think bringing that to any topic was great because it either polarized people or it opened them up to something, perhaps an opinion that they hadn't heard so far. And so the Wall Street Journal has come out with an article covering this. And so Fox News parted ways with primetime host Tucker Carlson in a surprising move that comes after he made disparaging remarks about colleagues at the network that were disclosed during a legal battle with a voting machine company. And so Mr. Carlson's departure puts an end to a decade-plus tenure at the conservative news network, during which he rose to become the highest-rated host in primetime cable news. Mr. Carlson, whose contract was renewed in 2021, will be paid out for the rest of his contract. And so people familiar with the matter said that Mr. Carlson is paid about $20 million a year. One of the people said, and Mr. Carlson found out that he was being let go about 10 minutes before the network announced his departure to the public. And so that's kind of harsh, in my opinion. Mr. Carlson's exit creates another high-profile open high profile opening in a cable news landscape where familiar faces have been leaving over the past year and a half. Also on Monday, CNN parted ways with Don Lemon, who has left his 10 p.m. primetime perch to co-anchor the network's new morning show, a move that has failed to generate strong ratings. So Fox News on Monday said that Mr. Carlson's last show was on Friday the 21st and said it would rely on a rotation of hosts until it names a permanent anchor for the 8 p.m. program. So it's interesting that it's led to other things, also including the parting of Don Lemon from his position as a host. And it comes at a really strange time. Now, there were a few other things I feel could have potentially contributed to these departures, and that's just my personal take and perhaps some of social media's take, that Tucker Carlson was pretty profound and public, talking about his views on journalism and how certain topics are being handled by big name journalistic companies and how they're handling topics that they have trust from the public and maybe abusing that. And he's pretty public with his opinion on that, and that may have led to perhaps part of that departure. And I would point to the Full Send podcast interview. I think that was another thorn in the side of CNN, that he did that podcast interview where he kind of came clean on some of his feelings on UAP, and some of the truth that he felt behind that, and some of the other stories that he has to maybe publicly say one thing, but has a personal opinion on inside knowledge that is totally counter that. And then again, with Don Lemon, he recently did an interview that was with a presidential candidate, where he kind of went at odds with the presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy, and kind of put it in an aggressive term in a live broadcast. And I think that kind of confrontation is also one of the things that perhaps led to the separation of Don Lemon from CNN. It's pretty heated times right now with that going on right now in the headlines.
Well, you know what? It's a big day in the U.S. news market when that happens. I want to kind of bring it back to focus on UFOs. We haven't seen a lot of people really take this story and run with it. We all, the minute we hear the word UFO or we read the word UFO in a major newspaper or on a major news television station, whether it's Fox or CNN or CNBC or Newsmax or whatever it may be, we as a community get excited about that, Tim. We get excited because we want everybody else to be able to share in what we have studied. It doesn't matter whether it's somebody like me who hosts a pretty popular radio show, or if it's somebody who is just an experiencer who follows this on Twitter or on social media. We want people to understand. We want to have that conversation with the people who are lesser known about the topic, to sit there and say, look, this is real. This is what I saw. This is why this topic is important. And we need to be able to massage that, to try and bring that story to more fluidity within the public. However, the coverage hasn't been stellar. And we're going to get into that when we return on Spaced Out Radio, about news coverage and the importance of it. Tim Senor, our resident Timbit, is here for the UFO report. We have until the top of the hour. And we're going to continue with this and many other stories that are lighting up the week here on Spaced Out Radio. We love talking UFOs around here, don't we? We'll be right back. Let's try and keep the Tucker and Lemon stuff towards UFOs, please. Okay.
Cool.
Just in the chat room. Isn't a big debate. I'm pretty sure with their $1 million contracts, they're not hurting. And you know, they're not going to be too worried about where their next meal is going to come from after their layoff notices get, you know, and their unemployment insurance kicks in.
I have a fun little side story for you, for our listeners. A Minnesota man was sentenced for a laser attack on a jetliner. And it was just with a handheld laser that a lot of us use to point at stars and things. But a federal judge in Wisconsin sentenced a Minnesota man on Friday to 2 years in prison for aiming a laser at a Delta Airlines jet in 2021. And so the act, the prosecutor said, disrupted the pilot's efforts to land and putting passengers in incredible danger. And so James Link, 43 years old, of Rochester, Minnesota, pleaded guilty in January. And so, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office, the pilots of the flight from Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina to Minneapolis reported that their cockpit was lit up 3 times by a laser at 9,000 feet just west of River Falls, Wisconsin, and the pilots were eventually able to land safely. 2 years in prison. Be careful with those lasers, everyone. When you're out circling your UFOs, make sure you're not circling an airplane accidentally. 2 years in prison. It's no joke. It's in the Wall Street. Crazy times. Right?
2 years.
2 years, a federal judge, because it was an airliner. It was federal. 2 years in prison for aiming a laser.
Wow.
Yeah. Yup. You know what else is in the headlines? New York City police to deploy robotic dogs. Like, check out that photograph.
What for?
So, interestingly, the New York Police Department will use more robots to fight crime. And the initiative includes the deployment of K5, quote unquote, units in Times Square that will help the beat officers with surveillance. So the city has also acquired 2 robotic dogs, which the NYPD call DigiDogs, that will be used at incidents such as hostage situations, and another device will shoot tracking devices onto suspect vehicles. And so they are literally deploying them right out into Times Square as surveillance. And again, take a look at those dogs. We are so close to Terminator days.
And
RoboCop. Exactly. In fact, that is even quoted in this article. Strange times.
Don't like it.
DigiDogs. It sounds like a snack food.
Still don't get it.
It's bizarre.
Still don't get it.
It's all happening. Yeah, mount a machine gun on that, and it's absolutely RoboCop time. Imagine that thing charging at you. Well, dealing with a hostage situation? Yikes. It's not delivering pizzas, that's for sure.
No, I don't think we're going to see Don Lemon or Tucker Carlson all of a sudden doing a DoorDash to raise a couple of bucks for gas.
Can you imagine if they did? That would be so great.
Oh my God.
That would be a treat.
Would you tip them? That's the big thing. Here we go, Tim. We rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. I want to remind you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. All right, Tim Senor is here with the UFO report, and we're talking about UFO coverage in mainstream media. This coming after Fox News has parted ways with Tucker Carlson. And normally, like I've stated before, I'm not a fan of Tucker's. I think he's smug. I think he's arrogant. I think if he was on the ice, I would definitely high stick him. Okay, I would. If I was a pitcher in baseball, I would throw for his head. Okay, don't like him. But nonetheless, I do like the fact that he kept the UFO story going within the mainstream media. And at times, when this story seemed to have dried up, Tim Senor, Tucker was there to bring more news, whether it was interviews with Lou Elizondo or Chris Mellon, even President Trump at the time, even, going as far as interviewing Jeremy Corbell about this, other fighter pilots, from David Fravor to Ryan Graves to anybody who wanted to talk about this subject. He really, truly seemed very interested and intrigued that this long-time tinfoil hat conspiracy story was actually true. And my question is, as we have talked numerous times on this show over the last, since our beginning, where's the mainstream coverage on this story? Who now picks it up? That's the scary part, because it's one thing to have a bunch of writers for Politico or newspaper writers to write it. Not a lot of people are still watching or reading newspapers. We're reading more online, yes, but it doesn't get the coverage that television still does. And if you look at every other major news site, they were still making fun of the topic, still playing the X-Files music, still having that little laughter about little green men after the story had been told. Really never seemed interested in giving it the proper coverage it deserved. So, Tim, if Tucker Carlson is now done in front of the camera, where do we go for this story? Who do we turn to?
Yeah, and this topic deserves an air of diplomacy that perhaps it hasn't received. Now, Tucker Carlson did some pretty in-depth interviews, and he also did a few specials that were like 45-minute long documentaries on the UFO UAP topic. And they were all available and still are via the Fox app. I guess it's the app they have for Fox News. And I feel like it, in this topic, like I was saying, we do need an air of diplomacy where I feel, you can't just hit it head on. You need to be diplomatic about how you talk about it, because ultimately there are two sides to this story. And if we want the truth, it's going to take an air of diplomacy to get it. And we know that. And so to come at it this way perhaps wasn't the way. Now, I would consider some of Leslie Kean's work to be pretty groundbreaking with some of her documentary work and her newspaper work and all of the articles that she publishes. But I feel like this topic is definitely seeking and needing new blood, looking for the next generation, perhaps, of people that will take some journalistic courage and ask the hard questions, but in perhaps a way that will get the answers that we need without perhaps upsetting the source of the information, if that makes any sense. And so we know that the information is out there. And we know that the people in the know are happy to talk about it, but it has to be done in a way that they can, um, reveal it without revealing sources or breaking NDAs. So again, I think this circles back to we're looking for the next generation, perhaps, of journalists at this point, because like you're seeing with these people falling away, perhaps there's a reason, their voice is being quieted at this time. We don't know. But quite honestly, Dave, I think it's going to come down to maybe some of the public voice that needs to be heard. Podcasts and shows like yours and radio shows like this, they are probably going to be the go-to now for the news. Because if people are being shot down every single time they raise their voice, it's going to take the low flying individuals that like to come out with the truth in their own way to be the go-to spot for the news now. So it's people like you, Dave, and this is going to be the place for the news.
Well, I mean, that's fine and dandy to say, and we don't mind bringing it. But there are millions upon millions of Americans who tune in each night, and we're getting that story of UFOs. That's hard to replace. Okay. Other shows like this who have that type of audience, they're not talking UFOs every night.
Right.
They're
Well, I
not
think Tucker also had a deep interest, didn't he? A personal interest. And I think that was expressed anytime he was asked on this subject, whether it was on or off camera. And he wasn't afraid to ask the questions that I feel like were in his gut to ask. Right. And it got him in trouble, perhaps down the line. But ultimately, I think he has a deep personal interest in this topic. Do you agree?
I think he does. Now, it's not that he was talking about the subject every night, but at least a couple times a month, it was coming out of his voice. And let's face it, he was also a pretty smart guy to know that the minute he would absolutely start talking about this subject, his ratings would spike. And anybody who watches ratings knows that the minute you start, and we see it here on our show, okay? If we go talk about spirituality, the paranormal, out of body experiences, near death experiences, we have our regulars who listen live, but our numbers are much lower than if we're talking UFOs or if we're talking Bigfoot and monsters. Our numbers are higher because this is what people want to hear. And any good marketing director will tell you point blank that when the numbers spike, you want to continue talking about that. Maybe not every night, because that's on a show like Tucker Carlson's on Fox, that's not the focus. But if you could talk about it once every couple weeks, that does enough to flare up the ratings, which flares up advertising. You could charge more money. And it was a smart business move for that show as well, and for Fox News advertisers and their advertising department. The question is, will they continue along that line? Because we haven't heard it from their other hosts that they have. It's always been Carlson, whether you love it or not. And like I said, I think as we round out this topic, Tim, and I'll give you the final word on it, I think this puts a very big hole within the UFO coverage in mainstream. Now, that all depends if he ends up at another network or not. If he does, we could probably see it continue. But if he doesn't, that's a big, big hole to fill that ufology I don't think can recover from.
No, I think you're absolutely right, because I feel like he was the driving force behind that topic being covered the way it was at CNN. You're absolutely right. So those are big boots to fill there. And I hearken back to when To the Stars Academy came out and this topic started to make headlines. And I wonder what that push was all about and why we've seen people come and go pretty publicly mainstreaming this topic and sometimes showboating on the and sometimes just passing the baton on, um, and allowing the topic to kind of navigate its own way. But before we switch topics, I just wanted to kind of get your take. What do you think the relationship is now with the topic from the beginning, when it was still kind of breaking the news headlines, to now where it's kind of they're trying to shuffle it back out of the headlines and out of mainstream news, and we can even see them they're trying to push people out that have that voice. What do you think the changes that's happened between then and now?
That I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. I think what we've seen a lot. If we go back to the beginning, Tim, we see a lot of disbelief within the mainstream community, because mainstream news outlets never wanted to cover this subject. They didn't know how to cover this subject because it was only, people with no dental plan, no education, hadn't had a haircut in 15 years, where everything was a conspiracy. They had tinfoil all around their house. Okay. Those were the type of people that newsroom journalists and anchors felt were the ones who were chasing the UFOs. They didn't realize that there were government officials. They didn't realize that there were government programs or scientists or lawyers or doctors that were looking into this field. They had no clue. All right. So they opened their eyes to that. Fast forward to today, the unfortunate part is, while at the beginning of this story back in 2016, 2017, when it really took to light, everybody was on board. But it waffled very, very quickly. And I can tell you why. You may not agree with me and you may not like the answer. But the answer is, you have a bunch of people sitting around a newsroom and a news editor saying, I'm not wasting airtime on this BS story of UFOs. It's garbage. I don't want it on my channel, or I don't want it in my paper, or I don't want it on my radio shows. Stop covering it. Do stuff that matters to people, not this conspiracy tinfoil hat wearing crap. That's where it started to die. Okay. If you've ever met a news editor, you will never meet somebody who is more in love with themselves than a news editor. And because they are the ones controlling what you hear on the air. There are no CIA agents in newsrooms or military people in newsrooms telling the news anchors what they can and cannot read. That went out with Good Morning Vietnam. Okay? And the Robin Williams movie, if you remember it. Long time ago. Great movie that was, by the way. But that doesn't happen in newsrooms. You don't have to believe me. It's just the way it is. It's the arrogance of these news editors and news directors that have kiboshed this story on where it should be. An example of this, Tim, was right around Christmas. Remember, it was right before, right after Christmas, where Elon Musk put on Twitter that his SpaceX rockets had been followed.
Yeah.
Why wasn't that covered? You have the most interesting man, the most influential man, the most valuable man, the richest man, talking about anomalies flying around his rockets every time they launch. Nobody picked it up. Can you find an article about it now? No. You can't. But he said it. So where do you go with that? If it wasn't about UFOs, let's say it was about satellites, would the story have made it?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. That's a really good point. And it's a shame. It's really a shame because that just goes to show that they really do control this topic. And it could literally just be an editor's whimsy, whether it's covered properly or not. That's very frustrating. Indeed.
You got a final story for us of a UFO encounter.
Dealer's choice.
You pick it, man. You pick
Okay.
it.
Yeah, let's do that. Stand by while I bring it up.
We got about 5.5 minutes, Tim.
Okay.
You can get that one in.
Yeah, so this is going to be an underwater UFO. And recently, new underwater UFO footage has surfaced. And so during a 2002 ROV expedition by Japan Agency for Marine Earth Science and Technology off San Rico, something unexpected happened at the moment the ROV filmed a giant squid. The new footage is available and it shows something like a fast-moving, glowing, saucer-shaped object passing by the background at a depth of 421 meters. And so, unable to identify the object, the puzzled expedition members wondered if the ROV had captured a deep-sea animal, or more likely, or potentially, a UFO or USO. A unidentified submerged object. So it's not the first time USOs like this have been seen in Earth bodies of water. These USOs flying into and out of the oceans are unknown craft that are able to travel underwater at tremendous speeds. But until now, it remains a mystery what exactly these objects are and where they come from. So this article coming from anomalien.com shows and talks about that USOs are similar to unidentified flying objects, except they are seen in or near bodies of water, such as oceans, lakes, rivers, or ponds. Some USOs are said to emerge from the water and fly into the air, while others are said to submerge and disappear into the depths. Now, this recent video that has released is pretty compelling, Dave. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but it literally does show a squid in very clear imagery. And then passing very close behind it is a long, stretched out white or silver looking saucer or shaped object. And it's very compelling. It moves so quickly through the frame. And even through frame by frame analysis, it's still very convincing that this is actually a hard shaped saucer shaped vehicle potentially. So Dave, with information like this coming forward, your thoughts about USOs and more evidence coming forward?
Well, the old UUPs, because I know you love them government terms, Tim. Them old UUPs, look, we don't know what's happening in the water. We're not spending enough time in the water, nor do I think there is the budget to be searching the water outside of the U.S. Navy. And we know there are strange things happening down there, including where they are probably hosting a whole plethora of aliens down there with their ships. They're having a big party. They haven't invited the humans down. And every now and again, they'll chase down a submarine just for giggles. I don't understand the water situation or how these craft can seem to go through the water at hundreds of miles an hour, then come out of the water and shoot up into the sky at 7,000 miles per hour instantaneously.
Indeed.
I don't get it.
In this video in particular, the craft moves right behind a squid. The squid does not even seem to notice. It doesn't disrupt the water around it. It doesn't disrupt the imagery or anything. It seems very unworldly and very convincing piece of evidence coming from San Rico, Japan. And so I would love your audience to go and take a look at that new evidence coming from anomalien.com.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just like Random Guy has told us, my man, he's like, guys, we got to start watching the water. There's a bunch of stuff happening in there. And every time, and I think you've asked this question about in 45 different directions to him. And he keeps saying, gotta check out the water. We need to spend more time in the water because that's where they're probably hiding. And if they have bases on this planet, that's probably where they are, where they can't be detected, is underwater. And I can tell you right now, I'm not going in. No bloody way am I going in. Okay?
There's so many places to hide there, and we know there are trenches that reach depths that we haven't even measured yet. A lot of our geomaps are unable to even get to the bottom of some of those trenches. So there's plenty of places underwater to hide, and I absolutely agree that that is somewhere that we should be exploring and mapping before we consider exploring and mapping outside of our planet. I mean, we don't even know every inch of our own planet. We're trying to get to know Mars.
Agreed.
It seems a little crazy, doesn't it?
I agree with you. And
Yeah.
There's nothing we can do. I mean, the good news is, my man, we'll get to keep an eye on it. We really will. Because I don't think it's the first time, and it definitely will not be the last before we hear more stories coming out of the ocean with these UFOs, or as Tim likes to call them, UUPs. UUPs.
It's the
You're
new
UUP.
lingo.
Hey, man, I know you love that new lingo stuff. You're that guy. You're that guy. Tim, thank you for another great UFO report. You were right on top of everything again. Thank you again, my man.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun. Great seeing you, and thanks, chat and audience.
All right. Thank you to Swamp Dweller and Lon Strickler from phantomsofmonsters.com for being here for Strange Days. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother Is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Facebook, Spreaker, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. I know you're out there somewhere. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we got room for them too. Good night. Woohoo!
Fun show.
That was fun. Oh.
You got RG in the wings?
Well, RG has a link, as he always does, for when you're on. He's prepared. I mean, his girlfriend has put on her cheerleading outfit, and she's sitting in the, just off the stands waiting to shake her pom-poms for him.
GF. That's so cool.
The RGGF. That
He's
sounds like a
extended.
military branch.
He's extended himself. That's great. Or actually, I think it's our chat that has extended itself into never mind. I'm just
Yeah.
robotic dogs, people. Robotic dogs. It's crazy times.
Very true.
Did we
Very
get to vote? When did we vote on this? It feels like we should have been able to vote on this. And they paid $750,000 for the robotic canines.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but check this out. They used the money that they seized from criminals to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually
That's nice.
cool.
Let's take a look at random guy here because he apparently did some shopping on our Spaced Out Radio store.
Slick.
Yeah, so
Where's my hat, Dave?
Let's take a little look here. Look at old random guy.
Yikes.
Boxers with my face on his butthole.
Is this
You got
really
aliens, random guy? You got aliens.
I'm looking away. If this is just,
how do you look away at that? It's like a train wreck ready to happen.
I don't know.
Oh, there he is.
The front
I've
package
got
now.
aliens, he says.
Oh
I've
my
got
God.
aliens.
Conveniently placed face. Look at that. Snuggle, everyone. Snuggle in.
That's a tight buttocks, man. That's a tight buttocks right there.
Mm-hmm. This is never mind. All right.
Uh-huh.
Way too up close and personal.
Hey.
Who's this show for?
I was not going to release that if he hadn't put him on Twitter.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now it's on YouTube as well.
He's proud of that.
Well, Deb from SAC just threw up a little in her mouth. Angela's saying it can't be unseen. Mothman's OMGing.
I should be a freaking underwear model, and you guys know it.
Dude, that is one tight buttocks right there, man.
Can bounce a quarter off that.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's take another look here. Hold on.
Let's not. People have to go to sleep at some point tonight.
Look at that.
That's a lot of squats right there.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Look at Tim. He's jealous. He's flat as a board.
Listen, you totally ignored my poll.
I didn't see it.
Your poll? He's been showing it the whole time here. Haven't you been watching? Your poll was just highlighted.
Get that shit off the
there it is.
screen.
All right.
No. You're gonna make Nicole. Nicole's gonna get super pissed in a second, just so you know.
I got too many screens in here. It's everywhere. Oh my God.
No, so I need you to do a poll where people put a yes or no or a one or two or this person or that person.
Okay.
If you can help me out. So here it is. So I'm going to preface this poll. You got to take that shit off the screen. I can't take this seriously. I'm dead. I'm dead.
Good times.
Okay, Dave.
I'm ready.
So glad I stayed late tonight.
Jesus. All right. So here's the poll. The poll is this. Who has the better personality? RG or Nicole? Now, before you post it, I have to let you guys know we were talking about it. And she told me, she goes, the chat's not smart enough to vote for you. So take that for what it's worth.
There we go. The poll is up.
Yeah.
Don't fail me, boys.
Do they know her? I mean, this feels swayed.
Don't fail me.
I mean, we just automatically.
So this is personality, not who you think is the better person, not who you think is a smarter person, who is more entertaining to watch. Ready, go.
So specific.
Oh boy.
Oh, you're getting chewed. Why would you put yourself out there like that?
Well, I'm just saying. She said the chat's not bright enough to vote.
You had to make
so
it.
We'll see.
Holy
we'll
cow!
See. That's her words. That's her words, not mine. So I don't know.
Than what I thought it would be.
Do the words landslide mean anything?
You know, sometimes she needs a little ego boost, so I give it to her.
Like caramba. Good times.
So we're talking about Tucker tonight. Is that just the new Newsmax SOR?
We kind of push.
I'm joking. I'm not going to bring it up.
In here.
RG, you are the man.
Am I?
Yeah, man. Did you see that underwater UFO footage?
I did. Hold on, my Apple AirTag is going off. Somebody's stalking me. That's weird.
Hold on, I gotta fix a no shit by Lon here.
Oh, he did a no shit?
I need to
Oh, shit.
6. So it should be around.
People who would take a report and just literally just put it up there as is.
That way we could get Bill WD-40 into the chat room and lube us up for tonight's show. Linda Judd, how are you? Got to lube up Bill WD-40.
I got a topic.
Right now it's 62% Nicole, 38% Random Gee.
Hey, I got a puncher's chance. To pull this out.
A creature that you've never heard of before.
Draw the line on that,
If especially Lon, if it's of a creature that you've never heard of before.
Well, a lot of it has to do with the actual witness embellishing on it. It's pretty cut and dry when that happens. I mean, they'll tell you one thing, then they try to make you believe it more by embellishing on it. That happens a lot, and I draw the line on that. That's just something we got to look out for. I know some people who would take a report and just literally just put it up there as is, without following up on it or talking to the witness. But I'm at the point now. I think I'm lucky enough to where I can be a little more discerning and try to keep up the report load to the best of my abilities. It's not easy all the time. I spend 6 to 8 hours a day working on the blog and listening to people's accounts and reading accounts, and it does take some time. But there's also a lot of work as far as how you write it up, so people can understand what actually happened.
Oh, for sure. What's the weirdest creature that someone has brought to you recently? Maybe when I say recently, maybe the last couple of years.
The weirdest creature. I don't know. There are just so many weird things out there. I would say something that may be a cross between one thing and another. I'd say especially otherworldly sightings where you get a description of a so-called alien being or extraterrestrial, where the characteristics are different than what the norm is as far as what you get. But I think that's probably the weirdest. And I actually wrote a book about it. Just so many different things people report to you, and that's that aspect of the paranormal. But some of the alien descriptions are pretty weird. Some of the characteristics, some of the activity with things, some of the things they do, it's pretty strange for the most part. But no, I'd say it would be those beings or those entities that kind of have different characteristics, from different other beings or well-known beings.
How many different alien species have you heard of?
Oh shit!
There we go. How many different aliens?
I couldn't keep count of. I don't know. I couldn't keep.
Have you heard of?
Oh shit! I don't know. I couldn't keep count of them.
Heard of?
Oh shit!
I love the editing.
Oh, done. We're good. Okay, you guys.
It's so fun just to hear it over and over. Oh shit! Oh shit!
I just like, yeah, it's like a soundboard now. Just add it to the soundboard.
It's beautiful. I've had the theme song for the Jeffersons stuck in my head all day. I don't know why. You know, we're moving on up just all day. I don't. Anyways.
Wow, you sounded just like the original artist there.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Funny.
That too.
Yeah. They must be bald as well. So have you guys heard about, and I'm sure you have, the top U.S. intelligence officials discuss UFOs in a historic security briefing that takes place at Wright-Patterson? And this took place just a couple of days ago. Are you guys familiar with this?
What happened?
Sounds like UFO stuff.
Can I go ahead and read the story?
Please do.
Okay, so top U.S. intelligence officials, including Director of National Intelligence Avril Haines, CIA Director William Burns, and General Paul Nakasone, the Director of National Security Agency, NSA. They convened at the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio for a national security briefing on Friday. So the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence was also in attendance, and both U.S. Representative Mike Turner and Ranking Member Jim Himes described the event as quote-unquote historic. So the purpose of the briefing was to ensure that intelligence officials are knowledgeable about activities occurring at Wright-Patterson, which the houses of National Space Intelligence Center and National Air and Space Intelligence Center both were among items addressed during Friday's briefing. So Congress's recently expanded mandate for NICIC in the arena of UFOs, or UAPs as they're often called today, short for unidentified aerial phenomena. The briefing also touched on other national security matters, such as the Chinese spy balloon that passed over U.S. in February, and the ongoing conflict in the Ukraine, and the recent UAP sightings. So the topics had been among the national security matters discussed in classified documents that were recently leaked. And so it's going on to say that Representative Turner expressed concerns about the classified documents that were leaked, saying what's really important is for us to get the facts about this. It's very clear the Department of Defense was not doing what it was supposed to do in monitoring access to classified documents. So that's the topic of that. But it was definitely brought up that information within that leak pertained to UAP. And also in an interview, Representative Himes highlighted the significance of the briefing, stating that in this quote, he says, "I don't recall the committee ever doing anything like this. And the briefing comes at a time when national security is of utmost concern, and intelligence officials are working to ensure the safety and security of the country." So it sounds like they're not giving away too many topics as to what it was specifically, covering there, but they did give us the fact that UAP was covered. And what are your thoughts about who was there and the fact that this was covered within some of those three big topics that they were covering there? And to be also clear, they're insinuating that it was there because historically Wright-Patterson had taken place in some of the UFO history. And so part of that was part of the briefing, is kind of the insinuation by this article. Because, they covered historic UFO and UAP along with current. So
it's just, my question is, what did we actually learn, though, from all this?
We, as the public, learned that there was a discussion that took place at Wright-Patterson.
I get it. I get that. But
UFOs. And
are they going to move it forward? Are they going to move it forward to anything? Is it being declassed? Is it going to a committee? Like, those are my questions.
Right. And so this article doesn't say anything except the purpose of the briefing was to ensure that intelligence officials are knowledgeable about the activities occurring at Wright Pat.
Got it. I mean, my guess is, like I said, just like everything else we talked about, anything that was at one of the big three back in the day, like pre 96, I use that as my date. Anything pre 96 at one of the big three, because there's pretty much three main places that show up, all these things. It just makes you think that the fact they're talking about it and becoming more transparent, at least that talks were had or things might have happened, that there's definitely nothing there because they've already moved it, destroyed it, whatever, right? If there even was. So I don't really see an advantage unless somebody's going to be clear cut about exactly what took place.
Right. And Ross Coldhart, who's a pretty good reporter, and I would say somebody that'll probably be stepping up in the shoes here now as the go-to guy for reporting on this, now that we don't have so many people as they're falling away, right, Dave? Ross Coldhart was reporting that he was there and saying Air Force intelligence leaders are starting to arrive on Thursday for unprecedented, unspecified, quote unquote, briefing. And so, I mean, we probably will get some more information via Ross Coldhart over the next few days as he prepares his briefing to the public. But for now, I was just kind of hoping to get your take on the fact that potentially, if there was anything to show on this topic, maybe that was disclosed. It seemed like the people that need to be talking about it were at this meeting. I would love to highlight that National Space Intelligence Center was there. National Air and Space Intelligence Center was there represented. So it seems to me like the conversation was hovering over UFOs as being the centralized topic, whether it was specific to balloons or other. And I believe that the discussion probably lingered towards the other in the takedowns, the ones that we never heard of publicly. And perhaps it did go into actual UFO, not just balloons and mundane objects. Do you believe that? Now, you put a lot of hypotheticals forward. Let's just put some assumptions forward in those gaps to help you answer the question. Let's assume they were talking about UFOs and things that are coming from another planet as a reality. And let's say that they were talking about the historical evidence that was perhaps there, and they were showing people that at this conversation. So the outcome would be that now these people are in the know that that was a reality. If you were a person sitting in that conversation, how would you walk away, and how would you action the information?
It would have to be based on what the briefing was about. Like I said, if I was ever to come into knowledge that we're in contact with extraterrestrials, and unless they gave me a reason that made sense of why we're not telling, I'd be screaming it. I mean, it's too big of a secret if there's no reason. Now, if they came and said, "Hey, here's the deal, guys. We know there's these aliens, and we can't do X, Y, Z, and we can't tell people because they're going to kill us if we tell," or whatever, any host of implausible scenarios, then I'd just be like, "Holy crap, I know something crazy." And I'd probably keep it. If it meant death to my family or my fellow man by telling it, I wouldn't. But otherwise, if it was purely the existence, I'd be leaking that all over the place for sure.
Well, I mean, you do have aliens, though.
He does have aliens. Dave, what do you think the relevancy of this conversation was, and the fact that it just took place after the public hearings, just days after that? And this was with Avril Haines, obviously, so National Intelligence Director for CIA, William Burns.
I think it was probably trying to figure out, okay, well, we've got the subject deflected. Kirkpatrick did his job. Where are we with the aliens? Where's Will Smith when you need him?
Welcome to Earth.
Exactly. No, but seriously, I mean, that's a tough question there, Tim, because we don't know. Was the conversation about UFOs or is it about UAP? I think right now the big thing is UAP is the hot button topic right now. What's coming into the airspace? Where are the glitches?
Yeah.
Where are the holes? How much do we need to blame Canada for it because they're not upholding their end of the bargain on NATO? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, that brings up a good point. Sorry to interject real quick,
No,
but
please.
just real quickly, though, you mentioned NATO. So, like, if these things are going on and we're briefing our people, we brief our allies about our nuclear response capabilities at some level. We brief them about, we share counter intel with them. We're not going to tell them about the aliens. Where's the foreign? How come all the foreign governments, even the ones that share the most protective secrets, like nuclear secrets and secret weapons, secret aircraft that we do share with a couple countries, why do they not share information about UFO, UAP, UUP, whatever, enter here? Why is that?
Maybe they do. We know Elizondo tried to do that.
Did he, though? To what end? So I'm talking about if there is I don't even know what the hell you want to call it, a committee, an MJ12, some secret society, whatever your conspiracy is that runs this stuff within the government or a subsection of, then there has to be like entities at other governments, right? How come we don't talk about any of those, and how come they don't seem to ever interface in any of these conspiracy theories? Why is it all like each place is holding it to themselves?
Compartmentalization.
Yeah, but these are countries we share our nuclear, like they could end the world using the information we share with them. So what could be, to me, aliens fall below ballistic missile response and likelihood of emergency and urgency and severity of consequence of sharing information and intel. So why would you not share aliens?
Perhaps because historically it's been muddled by cover-up so much they don't even, like, I don't know. That's a good question.
And the only reason I bring that up, because that's another indicator to me that they just don't know, because they would share something, at least with like UK, the Aussies, like the people that we let into our secret places, right? Those guys would know. And it doesn't seem like so not only are people keeping a secret, their people are keeping completely different secrets. That doesn't make any sense. At some point, there has to be some kind of connection.
Why do you see so many people coming out with this conversation about the Mosul Orb 2.0 that recently came out? In that video, it shows something like the Mosul Orb that Jeremy had released. And in this new video, I mean, it looks like another orb, right? And so there's been research done and papers, and Liberation Times just had an article on can orbs fly and things like that. And we've seen a lot of debunkers and like articles coming out where it's kids with balloons wrapping them in foil to throw off the radar of, planes during the war. So, I mean, there's some reality to what some of this could be. But do you think any part of this is like, let me rephrase it. What is your reaction to that second orb video that came out recently?
Well, that was the first thing I called out, was that I think we talked about it briefly when it did drop, but it does look very similar, right? And then I was talking to you about that specific aircraft that photographed it. It would be nice if we could get the other camera, the one that does the Gorgon or whatever the hell that camera is called, that does like 20 miles.
Gorgon.
It would be nice. It would be nice to get overlays and overlay them, because they're able to do that. So I'm always like, when we get one image or one clip, and we don't get the totality of data for something that they're presenting, that in itself makes it less, I don't want to say less believable, but it's like, okay, give us all of it then. If you've already declassified this battlefield or this surveillance zone and you're happy showing us that clip, show us the other camera views for the same area. Give us, the other information, but they're withholding that. That's important for scientific, if you're going to apply the scientific method to things and you need very smart people to analyze things, then they need all of the data to come to their conclusion. You're not providing that. You're providing something to show on a news clip and not actually trying to get to the bottom of it.
Right. And I imagine there is a declassified and a classified version of that video. And there may be a second source other than just the Reaper drone footage that they made public. But I do find that very interesting, that they are so willing to show that. And they're also willing to show the video that was obviously a plane and things like that. And I'm just wondering, why do they show us videos that are of mundane objects when that's not the discussion, right? It feels like, not a serious conversation. It can be very, it's frustrating when, I've got better video of questionable stuff. We probably all do. You probably even have better UFO video that you've shot with your cell phone than they provided. So I just find it a little bit frustrating still, that we're, being we're not properly representing, I guess, true UFO when it comes to this topic. They're talking about UAP and they're talking about things that are potentially debunkable and mundane. I've yet to see anything that they're showing us that displays any of the 5 observables or whatever that Elizondo likes to talk about, when we know that they exist because they created the 5 observables. Why did they create that list if they don't have any examples?
Right. No, I get it.
So that's really frustrating, especially when we're told of these tantalizing videos that exist, and that they're classified. That is very frustrating for the public to hear. So, I'm not really sure. And we're also told that 24 whistleblowers have already testified. The public knows nothing about any of the information that came from that or who testified. That doesn't feel like transparency. And so how do you feel moving forward, knowing that all this is going on? It's been 50 years since they've discussed this topic publicly. Do you think they're doing a good job of it? What's your opinion of what the best possible scenario is?
Well, I kind of already gave my opinion on this the other day. The senator involved here, she has a history of speaking up on hot button issues to draw attention, like I said previously, for a presidential campaign. And I'm not criticizing the politics of her. I don't even really know all of her policies and politics, to be honest with you. But I'm just saying, as something that it's easily verified, just as I use cryptocurrency regulation as an example. When something is hot button, she likes to get in front of it when no one else is championing it, and seems to get a lot of press. I would not be surprised if what we saw, again, because the open court hearing, if you will, of what happened, it just seems super canned. So they probably gave her some version of some classified stuff to make her feel good about it. She gets to come out and say, hey, I'm appeasing the community. I'm taking this seriously. I'm very curious to see what she says at the podcast. And that, I think that, even because that's a lesser known medium, it's more community based. So I'm interested to see how the questions are geared and how they're responded to versus something that was clearly canned from the jump in 4K that we saw the other day.
It's awesome. Dave, did you want to?
Right. I think Random Guy is right on that one. That in regards to what she says on that podcast with the good trouble show with Matt Ford, I think it's going to be very important to see where it goes in the community. We have to monitor that. We have to We have to see how she reacts to questions that she may not be used to. We don't have a choice.
That's going to be cool, though. That's what I said. In the moment, now, I don't know who this podcast guy is. You guys seem to. It'll be interesting to find out if he has to provide questions ahead of time, that kind of game, or if he's able to just live fire.
Yeah, that we have to find out.
Yeah.
Not sure.
If I can just switch to my final gear for the night, I know Dave and I had talked about some news with Enigma. Dave, did you want to talk about that?
I'm editing, dude.
Okay. Well, we can save that.
I would like to hear what you have to say, Timmy.
Oh, well.
Unless you don't want to.
I just don't have all the details.
Okay.
Dave's got more detail than I do.
Well,
that's scary.
The opening up of the conversation really happened on Twitter today about some people talking about whether or not, it started out a conversation about Sean Kirkpatrick. And I had gone out on Twitter and stated that, Kirkpatrick is somebody who is, I believe, setting himself up for a potential job with Enigma. And it's funny because we promote all of this information out there, but it's funny how UFO Twitter with their blinders on really at times doesn't pay attention to what's actually going on, because they're so pro disclosure and they're so pro doesn't matter how we get there, let's just get to the finish line, that they don't want to look at the intricate details of what is going on. But when we brought up the fact, both myself and Science Bob brought up the fact on Twitter that there's a good chance that because of his relationship with Peter Thiel, that Sean Kirkpatrick could end up leading Enigma in the near future, that's where all of a sudden the conversation kind of heated up a little bit. And when we presented the facts and the information that we have been putting out on this show between Tim and I the last number of months, and I want to thank Nicole Sackich for really bringing this to attention a number of months ago. And her and I did a lot of digging on this, and she did a lot of digging privately on this, that we were able to really try and find some balance, that maybe there is something, I don't want to use the word nefarious, but maybe there is something that isn't really seeing 2 + 2 = 4 when it comes to what their goals are. And when UFO Twitter started asking questions, it was kind of cool to all of a sudden be at that center of attention that we don't normally get from those people, because they're too busy doing whatever they do. So I think it's a little bit interesting that people are starting to catch on, because as we move forward, people are starting to wonder, well, where do we go next? What's the next move with everything? And the next move is obviously going to be, what happens with Enigma. Because, I mean, remember, Kirkpatrick said in his hearing, said in his statement that he wants to see more privatization of study and the public engaging in that privatization. Well, who's that group? We know Enigma was granted access to that private UFO meeting or UAP meeting that NASA put on with Arrow. We know that happened. We know the Galileo Project was also invited to that very private meeting. So if Enigma was invited, who had control of that? Obviously Kirkpatrick. And I think it's a match made in heaven for Kirkpatrick that he's setting himself up for a post-career where it's going to be probably a higher 6-figure salary. And it goes from there. And I think the UFO community is actually starting to pay attention to what is going on, thanks to Science Bob and myself today, and the hard work that people like Nicole Sackich have been putting into this in trying to dig up what is truly going on.
I will just say this. It's pretty interesting that you bring that up, only because I'm doing the math now. If you're talking about potentially Kirkpatrick leading in with Enigma Labs, and then you look at kind of the ethos of what Enigma is offering, and then compare it to what Kirkpatrick gave at the hearing about the way that they do their 5 steps of analysis and stuff like that, that just screams to me that databases are coming or being purchased. And then he would be able to access all the databases the government has. MUFON's accessible, and you can bring all of that, and then Enigma becomes the single power broker for data in regards to the subject. But you got an inside man if the government ever wants to say, hey, yeah, can you not do that one? Thanks. You know?
Mm-hmm. I think it just makes sense. You know, I mean, a lot of people may not agree with it. That's quite okay. That's quite okay. But I mean, we have to realize that there is this Enigma group. They're not going away. They've already got the money. We've seen every type of group seem to, you know, who's looking for money, seem to try and float their way over the last little bit, you know, and waving the Enigma flag. You know, it reminds me, you know, of something that just, as a journalist, it makes me take a step back and say, hold on a second here. What am I missing? What am I missing about this? You know, and I'm not going to sit here and say what my first clues were. Okay. But when you get certain people involved, and I'm not going to name names, but when you get certain people involved that kind of have a reputation within the UFO community, and it's not, you know, some of it positive, some of it negative, it makes me wonder, okay, if this type of person is involved, and then when Louis Borges and I broke down the Enigma website a few months ago, it really makes me wonder, you know, where is this going? Why the secrecy? You know, then you add into what Rich Hoffman said on this show, and you add into what Kirkpatrick said in the public hearings. It's all coming together behind the scenes. It's all coming together, you know, and I'm not saying we're right, but what I think we are is I think we're on a hot trail of information, and that trail is leading down a path of secrecy. And that's what they want. They want control of the narrative. And we've seen that since the beginning of the To the Stars.
And also, Enigma's using AI to scale each report and assign it, I believe, a number, you know, a number assignment. And it'll also be designated whether it's an orb or a triangle or a saucer sighting and all of that. And perhaps this is somehow their way of researching public reaction to their own tech, you know, being tested. Theoretically, if they were to test something stealthy over a populated area, they'd like to see how the public responds to that. And so maybe they could tap Enigma, look up that day and see if there are any triangular reports. You know, I'm just saying maybe it's just for their own mundane use to report on how their technology is being observed by the public. You know, I mean, it could be one of the military uses. You know, it's not a scientific use, but it is one of the potential uses for Enigma. You know, if Enigma was the one-stop shop for reports, it could absolutely be used in that way. Do you think that potentially that could even lead to them giving results that are skewed based on how they, you know, want it?
Could be. When you have control, you could skew anything, Tim. And let's remember that Peter Thiel, the man who's put $5 to $7 million into Enigma, okay, let's also remember that he is also, here's the funny part that I found was Enigma's first tweet that has since been released said that they were not getting involved in any government contracts, but they were happy to be working with NASA and Aero. But then you look at Peter Thiel, who owns a company called Palantir, which does a bunch of the computer work and upgrades and security for the Defense Department. They have Defense Department contracts.
Yeah.
So we're being played here by this Enigma Labs, who's talking out of one side of their mouth, saying, no, we're not going to get any government contracts. That's not what we're about. But our owner has, or our financier has government contracts. And we're hanging out with NASA and Aero, but we're not doing a deal with them because we don't do government contracts. But these are our buddies that we're working with right now.
Yeah. And meanwhile, they still haven't talked about UFOs and aliens or anything that the conversation is supposed to be about. It's very frustrating to hear them so focused supposedly on the topic, but never mention it once. You know what I mean? It's very frustrating, to hear them looking for information on UAP, but at the same rate, they're never saying saucer. They never say anything specific about orb they'll show you orbs and they may even be in the headline, but they don't say the words out loud. It's like, it's not within their belief system or potential system, even, it feels like. And even I'm saying even the senators that are working on the topic feels like, they're more interested in UAP than UFO, if that makes sense. Which is a little bit frustrating. But RG, you've gone a little bit silent. I see you're muted down there, Mr. Personality. What is your take on potentially them taking control of the UFO topic and sweeping it under the rug and using this database for its own control of the topic and focusing on UAP reports and, the balloon reports and that sort of thing for their research?
I'm actually going to come at this from a different angle. I don't think it hurts anything. All right. And this is why. You're already not getting any information. You're already not getting disclosure. So in a way, part of it is like, yeah, well, you can be frustrated about what is this company doing? How are they getting this access? What are they up to? But at the end of the day, it's important to understand that as long as whatever data they produce that they're outputting is taken with a grain of salt, because you know how the company is built and potentially how it could be manipulated, it's not necessarily a terrible thing. It doesn't stop MUFON from doing what they do. It doesn't stop SOR from doing what they do. It doesn't stop research. The only potentially really negative thing that could happen is anytime somebody gets traction with a government official or a policy and says, hey, we need to look at this stuff. We're tired of being ignored. The danger is then they can point to Enigma and say, it's already being handled. It's already being transparent. It's already civilian world. We don't need to talk to you and give you anything else. That's the only drawback. But as far as Enigma, whatever they're up to themselves, I really don't care. It'll be interesting to see what they churn out. And I'm sure with the budget they have, it'll probably look amazing and we'll probably get a lot of good stuff technology-wise, but it will take a rival likely with somebody else that's going to put money up and start their own AI database firm that's truly open source to move the topic forward and that way, and know that there's no fruit of a poison tree type, things going on with manipulation.
RG walking the line. I like it.
Oh, yeah. That's why we call him the G around here, man. We call him the G. That's why we love him.
No, that's a fair
I'm the OG. I'm the OG.
I think it's fair to wait and, hold your or, you know, reserve your opinion. I think that's fine. You know, it's still, do we even know for sure who really funded this? I mean, do we know Peter Thiel is definitely, like, nowhere does it say anywhere on their website who is a member or who's funding or anything. I mean, I'm just saying it's a very mysterious organization still, in my opinion. You know, so that's, I don't know how to place that. The people that I do know that exist are like number crunchers and web designers and things like that.
I have heard from about 6 different people who would be in the know that Peter Thiel put the money in. By the way, just to take a look at our poll as we start to wrap things up, better personality. Nicole winning 61% to 39% for Random Gee.
Oh, jeez.
The public has spoken, Random.
Yeah, that's fine. I knew she had too many simps in the chat, so it's okay. It was a stacked deck against me. I got 2 months of being an a-hole. She's got years of being respected. I get it. Nice win. I'll let your ego have this one, Nicole.
Yeah. There you go. Gentlemen,
things to come.
Great show. Really appreciate it. And
Thank
Tim
you.
will talk to you in a couple of nights' time, same as you, Random Gee. And by the way, it is that time of the night where we say hello to all of the agents and agencies out there. We really appreciate it. Give us a call sometime. You already have our phone numbers, so give us a call and say hello. And remember, there are certain people in this field that can be bought, right? Certain people. So tomorrow night on the show, we're going to have Dolly Saffron and Preston Dennett here talking about alien life experiences and contact. They're going to talk about people like Random Guy who are, in denial of their own woo. You know, when you wake up and you see aliens at the foot of the bed, I mean, who denies that? Random Guy does. Yeah, that's right, Tim. Right there. The old G.
Deny until you can't deny anymore.
That's right. But we love you guys, and thank you to our super chatters tonight. CS, Omar, Nancy H, Louis ×2, Mike, Michael, Molly, Deb, and Derek. Very much appreciate the love. We'll see you tomorrow with Preston and Dolly. Good night, everybody. Take care.
Healthy, my friend.
You too.
You need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.